My boyfriend still has weekly date nights with his ex-girlfriend, which by the way is a girlfriend he's dated off and on for 10 years. And honestly, right now, it's making me question everything about our relationship because him and his ex are still going out every weekend despite the fact that we're in a relationship, which has essentially put me in a position where I really just don't know what to do anymore. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, where your boyfriend can still date his ex and somehow this is seen as okay, which is happening in this first story. It's very weird, so strap in for this one. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already, and click the bell to turn on notifications. Let's get started. So I've been with my boyfriend for about 4 months now, and overall he's honestly amazing. He's kind, caring, and really supportive. He has autism and ADHD, which is new for me, so I'm still learning how to communicate things in a way that works for the both of us. Now, before we got together, we were talking for about 6 months, and during this time, and ever since then, he's mentioned his friend, who I will call Caroline, quite a bit. She's the sister of his best friend and has been in his life ever since secondary school. I knew they had dated in the past, but he told me it ended because she came out, so I didn't really think much of it. Well, last week, something new came up. He mentioned that about a year ago, him and Caroline were actually dating again, but split up because she came out as gay. When I asked more about it, he explained that they've been on and off for almost 10 years, dating other people in between, but always coming back to each other. I also found out that they don't just hang out in a group like I'd assumed. They see each other every Friday night, just the two of them, watching scary movies and getting takeout. And this is something that we used to do when they were together and have continued doing. And I gotta be honest, that really made me uncomfortable because to me, it feels like a standing date night with an ex. I explained this to him calmly and he seemed to understand and said that he would change it. But last night he did the exact same thing again. But when I brought it up, he said he still needs to be able to spend time with his friends. Now, I don't want to control who he sees and I understand that friendships matter, but this specific situation feels different to me given their history and the fact that it's a regular one-on-one thing that mirrors what they did as a couple. So how do I approach this in a way he'll understand without it turning into an argument? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be honest, this is like a giant red flag, dude. They've been on and off dating for 10 years, and suddenly Caroline's like, oh yeah, I'm gay now, we can't be together. But sure, let's have date nights every single weekend, it's fine. I don't care that you're dating someone else, that's totally okay. Like, if that doesn't scream that they're probably gonna get back together like they've done for the past 10 years, then I don't know what is. And I'm not doubting Caroline coming out or anything like that, like whatever, that's totally fine. That's not even part of the issue. But what I am saying is that, dude, it could happen. Like, it's already happened for like a decade. Who's to say you're not just another in-between girl between the two of them? So yeah, if this was me, I would take this as a giant red flag and be like, dude, if we're actually in a relationship, please start acting like it. Stop dating your ex, even if she's gay. I don't trust that. That sounds really sketchy and it kind of seems like there's something going on there. And I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would address this much sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for telling an ER nurse to stop scolding me after I literally was just trying to get a wheelchair for my mom who had broken her foot? Because this situation really dissolved into something I didn't want to be a part of. And I'm honestly not sure if I crossed a line or if I'm justified in any way. Here's basically what happened. Okay, so I've been helping my mom out all week because she has a broken foot. I'm driving her around, helping with groceries, and just around the house. I'm a 28-year-old female and we were at the local hospital emergency room and the situation was a mess. In fact, when we got there, there were like 0 wheelchairs available in the emergency room, so my mom had to use her crutches. She was absolutely exhausted and really struggling. The triage nurse herself was the one who sent me to go find a wheelchair. I started to head out, but I was confused about where to go, so I came back to get further clarification. A paramedic standing there told me that she didn't think there were any left in the main entrance, but the triage nurse told me she doesn't know what she's saying. She doesn't work here. I'm the one who works here and knows everything. The paramedic then made a bit of a face, but she offered to walk me up anyways, since I had never been to that part of the building, the main entrance, or this hospital in general before. We get to the wheelchair stack and I grab one from the exact same pile the paramedic did, and hers was clean and mine looked a little damp, but I had been at a different hospital last week where they wipe everything down before putting it back, so I assumed it was just wet from like disinfectant or something like that. Well, when we get back to the emergency room, this triage nurse starts giving me a moral lecture. She starts saying that I'm inconsiderate and I need to be more considerate of others, how I need to take care of old people and be better, and somehow acting like my mom, who's like only in her 50s, was some senile patient I was neglecting. I never raised my voice and I never swore, but I just calmly said, please stop scolding me. And that apparently just made it way worse, because then she started scolding me about the fact that I told her to stop scolding me. She kept going on and on about how I, again, need to do better and help out the elderly, and I literally had to say, please just stop several times before she finally quit. My mom was just super stressed out and said that I shouldn't have bothered saying anything, which is funny because my mom can be very much the same, but I truly just don't think I did anything wrong. I was just trying to help my mom in a confusing situation, and I didn't think I deserved to be lectured like a child. I'm also not a healthcare worker or taking care of elderly in my day-to-day interactions, so I don't know, it kind of felt like I was getting a lecture from a coworker almost. So am I the jerk for sticking up for myself because I don't know what to do? No, you're not the jerk. That nurse was being a complete moron. Seriously, all you were doing was getting a wheelchair, dude. It's not like you're neglecting your mom. You're not abandoning her. You're clearly getting something that obviously she needs. Otherwise, she's gonna be hobbling around on crutches all day. Like, that sounds miserable. In my opinion, if I was in your situation, I would absolutely report that nurse immediately. I would go back there and be like, I want to talk to a supervisor of some kind, because I'm pretty sure scolding a patient coming in or someone helping out a patient is most definitely not a part of their protocol, and it sounds like someone needs to be retrained. So overall, no, of course you're not the jerk, you didn't do anything wrong, and I think you did the right thing by standing up for yourself. Am I the jerk for not wanting to have a craft night with my best friend after she literally bailed the 2 other times I tried to schedule it after she lied to me just to hang out with her boyfriend? Because now I'm a little bit pissed off and I seriously just don't know what else to do. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, so me and my best friend have known each other for about 3 years now. About a year ago, she met her boyfriend, and pretty much since then, she will just blow me off at every opportunity to spend time with him. I kid you not, if we have plans together, she will ask if her boyfriend can come along or turn it into a couples thing by also inviting my boyfriend, or most often just show up with her boyfriend without telling me that he'd be there. And honestly, it drives me crazy. Her boyfriend and my boyfriend were actually really good friends before we all met, so we do hang out in group settings a lot, but sometimes you just want some girl time. On the rare occasions she does hang out alone with me, she texts her boyfriend constantly, and if she's not texting him, she is constantly talking about him. I gave her grace when they first started dating because I'm aware of how much a new relationship changes your priorities. However, now they are a year in and nothing has changed. They live in the same apartment, they work together, and when they're not together, they're on the phone with each other. All of this to say that they pretty much spend 24/7 together, but I still try to hang out with her one-on-one once every few weeks or so. Well, a few months ago, I asked if she wanted to have a craft night at my apartment where I would get some wine and some activity for us to do and just hang out. And after she finally said yes, we set a date and a time. The day of, I went to the store and I got the wine and I got some crafts and all this other stuff. And as I'm headed home, I get a text message from her that says that she doesn't feel good and that she's going to have to bail. Now, it's bad timing on her part, but oh well, what can I do about it? So instead of just sitting alone and drinking a bottle of wine, I do the craft that I was supposed to do with her with my boyfriend. My boyfriend then talks to her boyfriend that night and checks up on my friend, and her boyfriend actually tells us that she's fine and they're watching a movie. Well, a month after that, she goes out of her way to ask me if we can have a craft night since she missed the last one. And when she asks that, I say yes, of course. So we set a date and a time, and the day of, I go to the store once again, and I buy all the stuff I need, and I get it all set up at home. But then, 20 minutes before it's crafting time, she sends me another text message, and yes, she bails again. This time, her back just hurts way too much to go and do the craft night. Well, she must not be telling her boyfriend her lies, because he tells my boyfriend they are actually going out that night. So it's here that my boyfriend and I do a second craft night together. Well, a week ago, she asked if I wanted to do another craft night, but I just straight up tell her I really just don't want to go and get all the stuff just for you to bail on me again. But she says it shouldn't even matter because I do the crafts with my boyfriend, so it's not a waste of money. I then tried to explain to her that it is more of a respect thing than anything else. And if I knew that I didn't want to hang out the day of, I wouldn't let you spend money on an activity I had no intention of participating in. She then tried to say that I was in the wrong for doing all the crafts with my boyfriend instead of trying to reschedule with her. But I then explained that it's almost impossible to do anything with her without her bailing to hang out with her boyfriend. And now, because of that, she's mad at me. So seriously, am I the jerk at all in this situation? Because I'm really frustrated, and at this point I don't know what to do with my friend. Dude, if I was in your shoes, I probably would be like, okay, we can have a craft night, but you're scheduling it. We're doing it at your place and you're buying all the stuff. Because seriously, the last two, she's the one that's bailed. She's the one that's backed out suddenly and said, oh, I can't do it. Sorry about that. Just straight up lying to your face and being like, oh, my back hurts, or oh, I'm not feeling good, or whatever other excuse she tries to come up with. Like, screw that. You can foot the bill, lady. I'm not doing this. We're going to your place from now on and you can figure it out. Because dude, this is like strike number 2 out of 3. She's seriously trying to be like, okay, let's try this again for the 3rd time. But if the first 2 situations don't indicate anything, then my God, the original poster is setting themselves up for failure again. So no, you're not the jerk. Like, honestly, your friend needs to start scheduling this if her schedule is that weird and she just clearly can't get anything going without being like, oh yeah, I want to spend time with my boyfriend instead of you. Because this behavior is weird, it's a little bit toxic if you ask me, and I just would never want to put up with this. This next story is proof that maybe it's not a good idea to bring your spouse with you to a job interview, because the original poster's wife in this story quite literally cost them the job they were trying to get. And now the original poster is trying to figure out if they overreacted by being pissed off. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife and I drove to a town 2 hours away for a last-minute job interview for a tenure track position for me. It's currently April, and if you know, then you know that now is a pretty late time to get a job offer teaching university for the fall. But I haven't had any bites besides this one, and I am humanities. My contract at my current college is over. I'm the breadwinner and we need this job. It would also mean that we would need to pack up and move. Our lease is ending in June and we need answers. Okay, so on to the issue at hand. My wife, who I will call Claire for the sake of the story, drove with me, and since we were in the same state, they didn't provide a hotel. So Claire waited for me in the Panera on campus. After the interview, the dean asked if we could go to the Panera for a coffee on her to finish our conversation. It's been about 2.5 hours and I'm sure Claire is bored, but she has a test to study for, so I hope she'll make it work. And I don't really plan to introduce them. Neither of us wear a ring, and I'm never sure where people stand with homophobia and all that stuff, but I honestly really want this job, and I can say it later if I need to. So I give her the heads up that we will be in there. The dean is, well, a very chatty person. She talks about the school, but then tells lots of long anecdotes about her grandchildren with videos on her phone. It is, of course, very boring, but I'm not in a position to give her anything except for my undivided attention. But Claire, however, is getting very antsy. The weather's getting bad, so she starts pointing at her watch and waving her arms behind the dean. It is super distracting, but I just ignore her. I know if it's an emergency, she'd say something. At this point, she's texting me, and I can see on my watch that she's saying it's time to go. Well, after about an hour of the dean talking, I can tell she's getting ready to wrap up her stories, because it's here she starts to get back to the job. She then says to me, I want to offer you this job, but I have one question. Do you think you'll be able to move in 4 months? That is short notice, but do you have anyone else to consider when it comes to moving? And I realize that, yeah, she's trying to find out if I have any family. Claire, at this moment, as if she was on cue, comes over and says, I see you guys are getting to know each other, and I think that's wonderful, but we actually left our pet alone at home, and we should really be getting on the road. Now, for reference, my best friend is literally my next door neighbor, and they always take our pet if we need them to, so Claire really does know that's not an issue. When Claire said this, the dean was taken aback and said, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll be in touch. And honestly, I am livid over this. So am I overreacting about this situation? Because I really just don't know what to do. Okay, before we go any further, the original poster has an update to this story, and this is what they had to say. Okay, as an update to this situation, my friend is a friend of one of the teachers that works there, and she said the dean offered another candidate the job, but she turned it down because of the salary and instead went somewhere else. So I'm next on the list. I'm angry because that means it probably kicked me down from being her first choice, but I'm grateful the other candidate got her first choice and could say no to this job. Also, for those of you who are asking why I brought Claire with me in the first place, honestly, she asked to come along. She wanted to see the town, and I thought it would be cool if I had 2 hours to practice my talk. But honestly, I had no idea the dean was going to offer to go to Panera. She took me in her personal car for a tour, and then said that she wanted to take me to get Panera to continue talking. Claire was close enough to hear the conversation and realize it wasn't what she thought it was, and so it made sense to her to just decide to interrupt. I didn't plan to introduce her because it was my interview, and it really was not a good time to do that in my opinion. But on the car ride home, Claire doubled down, saying that she shouldn't be made the villain because she cares about safety. So now I'm waiting to see if I get this job because honestly, I really hope I get it. Okay, dude, this is so unacceptable. I don't care who you are. Walking up and interrupting the interview, the interview you desperately need, probably was the reason why the original poster did not get the job, especially not right off the bat. Like, that was incredibly unprofessional. I would have been so pissed off if I had someone do that to me. Like, if I was in Claire's situation and I saw my spouse walking in with the person they're interviewing with, I would get out of town, dude. I'd walk down the street. I would go anywhere else just to give my partner the time they need to go through the interview. Like, this is all still a part of the interview too, by the way. This is the dean trying to be like, okay, what do you really like outside of like a normal interview setting? They're trying to see how you act in public and how you're going to treat like customer service people. Like, this is a normal part of the interview, and Claire definitely screwed it up. Like, is the dean going to have to deal with Claire on a daily basis where it's like, oh, we're trying to have a meeting, but Claire's getting in the way? And if anything, this kind of gave an indication of like, oh yeah, I kind of don't want to deal with this person's wife. They sound annoying. At least that would be my knee-jerk reaction if I was the dean in this situation. Like, honestly, that's how I would think. So Claire stepping in and interrupting this interview, in my opinion, was completely out of line. So no, you're not overreacting. I think your wife literally cost you this job, and that really sucks. My toxic neighbors are so bad that it caused me to literally move and sell my property. So I decided to get some revenge by selling it to the meanest person I could possibly find, which caused my former neighbors to be so miserable that now they're desperately trying to sell their property as well. And honestly, it feels really good to get back at these people because they made my life a living nightmare. Here's basically how I did it. Okay, to start things off, I have to admit, I can't deal with crappy neighbors. I have severe PTSD due to some stuff in my childhood, and I explode every time someone is being a jerk. I now have a PTSD service dog, and he helps a lot, but I've decided I can't put myself in certain situations, and crappy neighbors are certainly a trigger for me. That's all to say that I basically sold my property because of such neighbors. They were constantly breaking into my place, helping themselves to my property, firing off their weapons in my direction, destroying my trees. They destroyed the only access road I could use, so if I had a medical emergency, I was really screwed. They messed with my well and my electrical panel, and no amount of kindness or reasoning helped in any way, shape, or form. So I decided to do something about it. In fact, I told my friend and agent that I wanted him to find the biggest jerk on the planet, a territorial, confrontational jerk of epic proportions, and the most anal and nitpicky nightmare guy possible, and sell it to him. It made the sale more challenging and complicated, but that's exactly what he did. Well, 6 months later, he calls me laughing his head off, saying to me, "Oh, your old neighbors? They're terrified of your buyer. He has more money than they do and threatens to sue them every time they put a toe on his property line. He's got cameras everywhere. He's a Karen and a Rambo rolled into one, plus he's friends with a local sheriff. They've been on the straight and narrow ever since he moved in, and they're miserable." Now, my friend had also put them on the no list, which is a list that agents use to warn each other not to take on certain sellers. They've been wanting to sell their property because of the new guy, but no one will take them on as clients. Now, as for me, I bought a very cool RV with parts of the proceeds. I now live full-time out of an RV with my dog, and we travel everywhere. If the neighbors are jerks, then I just pack up and I move. Though I don't have neighbors often because I boondock in the wilderness most of the time. I also save a ton of money with this lifestyle. So yeah, in a way, they did chase me off my land, but I decided to teach them to be careful with what they wish for, because now their life is incredibly miserable. Oh man, this is awesome. First off, you had some terrible neighbors. You're telling me these people were trespassing and like destroying your property? Like, holy crap, that is unbelievably bad. That goes far beyond them just making noise or being loud during a weekday or keeping you up at night. Like, this is some actual like measurable damage they were doing to your property. So honestly, I don't blame you for selling your place and being like, I gotta get out of here. I think any person, regardless of if they have PTSD or not, would probably have trouble with that. But the way you did it is amazing. I love the fact that you're like, find me the worst person on planet Earth. Give me the most toxic and meanest guy you can find. Let's put them next to these people and see how they like it. Like, we all know the saying of like, oh, give them a taste of their own medicine, but this is taking it to a whole different level because you might as well be getting a funnel and just shoving it down their throat. Like, this is awesome. So yeah, good for you. You did the right thing. You gave these people a very healthy dose of karma, and from the sounds of it, they definitely deserved it. Am I the jerk for taking all the food from my ex-boyfriend's fridge, since I'm the one that bought all of it and he literally never cooked? Because right now my friends are kind of making me feel guilty and I just don't know if I made a mistake. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was dating my ex for about a year and a half and living together for almost a year. And for reference, my ex cannot cook. Before we started dating, he basically lived off of energy drinks and frozen meals. So when we were living together, I did all the cooking. And because I did all the cooking, I also did all the grocery shopping. He used to give me cash before I went to the store, but he hasn't really contributed to the grocery budget for a few months now. I broke up with him for a variety of reasons, but mostly because I was sick of being his stupid maid. He wasn't a slob and didn't leave a mess everywhere, but he never actually cleaned anything. So on top of doing all the cooking, I was also doing all the laundry, the dishes, and the cleaning. So a few weeks ago, I broke up with him, and the next day, a friend and I took the day off of work and cleaned out my stuff. And because I paid for all of it, I also took all the food out of the kitchen. I cleared the fridge, freezer, and the pantry cabinet, and there was literally nothing left in the apartment to eat. I also took all the cleaning supplies, but I doubt he'll miss those at all. Now, I know it was petty, but it's not like I took his stuff. I'm the one who paid for the food. A few of my friends say that I was unnecessarily mean and I should have at least left enough for a few sandwiches. But you know what? Groceries are expensive, and he wouldn't know what to do with any of it anyways. So seriously, am I the jerk for taking my food out of the fridge? Or should I have at least left something for my ex-boyfriend? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made a mistake and I don't really know what to do. Okay, dude, you are not the jerk at all. I would have done the same thing. Screw that, dude. He didn't do anything in the relationship. He clearly just wanted a maid instead of like, I don't know, a girlfriend and like an equal partner in this. And he was probably happy like, oh yeah, you're cooking all the time. This is great. And then pretty soon that convenience turned into like almost this entitlement where it's like, no, I'm not going to give you any money anymore. You're going to pay for everything and cook me food. And that in my opinion is like the breaking point, dude. That's where you're like, okay, you've got to share the load. I cannot be the only one doing the laundry and the dishes and cleaning and cooking. Like, dude, that's unacceptable. That's just lazy in my opinion. So yeah, I don't blame you for breaking up with him, and I don't blame you for taking all that food. It's literally yours. You're the one that paid for it. Why leave it in the fridge? He's not gonna do anything with it. Because if you left it, it's just gonna rot in his fridge for who knows how long. And at least when it's going with you, you're not wasting it, and you get to save just a little bit of money. Even if that means your ex-boyfriend's gonna have nothing to eat. My entitled sister likes to make up stuff about our mother just to make herself look like the victim and to tarnish my mother's name. But after dealing with this for so long, I finally decided to put my foot down and demand that she either explain herself or she shut her mouth and keep our mom out of her mouth. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start this off by saying that my sister was never mistreated. She just likes to think that she was because playing the victim is all she does anymore. But in truth, she actually mistreated me physically, verbally, emotionally, and one time she even made me lick her feet. Our mother clawed her way up from nothing. She went to college, got a great career, and did everything she could. But for my sister, it just wasn't enough. And my sister never grew out of her teenage mentality. She's 41 years old with a mind of a 16-year-old on some kind of substance. She invents new things in her own head and then convinces herself it actually happened. Now, my sister used to work at a small store and eatery, and it's thanks to her that we can't show our faces in there anymore. And it's a shame too because they had some really good food there. Anyways, for a while, my sister had a part-time coworker. This girl was meek and clearly traumatized. My sister got it out of her just how crazy this poor girl's mother was. I can't recall any specific details, but there was clear mistreatment of all kinds. Emotional, mental, physical, I mean the works. One thing I do remember was that the poor girl forgot her lunch one day and called her mother for help. Well, her mother yelled at her over the phone, said some horrible things, and then dropped by with nothing more than a small yogurt for her and expected her to be extremely grateful for it. My sister recounted this stuff to me while at home and then reenacted her reaction to the girl's story, which was to over-dramatically act like she was on the verge of tears with her hand on her heart and say that she was having flashbacks of her own mother and the things that she did to her. I was clearly weirded out, but ended up letting it go to avoid more drama. But that same subject about her coworker got brought up later, and that time my sister started saying that our mother did the same stuff to her as her coworker's mother. And at this point, I finally had enough, and I confronted my sister about all the made-up crap she was saying about our mother. I then asked her, when did all that stuff happen? Because I don't remember any of that. She just stood there staring for a second and then tried to play it off with a slight laugh, but I just didn't let it go. I said to her, no, seriously, when did that stuff happen? Because I don't remember any of that happening when we were kids. She just froze up and then walked away because she couldn't answer. She would probably totally deny this ever happening too, because she either would not remember or had enough time to mentally invent a retort. But that day she couldn't make up anything and she just walked off. In another post, I talked about how my sister didn't buy winter clothing for her kids in 2023, and I bought all of those clothes for them at a thrift store because it was all that I could afford. When I took my middle nephew out to buy clothing, we ended up talking about his mother, and I ranted many things about her to him, and he added some things from his side as well. And this kid is observant with a really level head, and currently has no denial about what kind of person his mother actually is. Then, after we were done shopping, his mother texted him, and during the text messages, my sister started making up stuff about our mother again, because that's her go-to thing to do when trying to keep people on her side. And right there over text messaging, my nephew used the same lies that I did. He literally said, well, when did that happen? I don't remember that happening. And then she just kind of stopped texting, like no response at all. I expected her to just need some time to make something up, but she didn't bother and didn't message him for the rest of the day. Thanks to my sister spreading rumors about our parents while she was living on the family property, my parents started getting the side eye from people, and we were getting recognized and treated like crap. Once we evicted my sister, that all finally stopped. Like, people just don't even seem to remember it anymore. My sister was going out of her way to poison the well for so long, but she can't do that anymore. And my stress has gone way down since we kicked her entitled butt out of here. Like, family drama just went to almost zero as soon as she was gone, and it's so much quieter here. I do miss my nephews though, but they're doing so much better since their dad took them away from my sister. Wow, your sister literally just does not sound like a good person, and I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. It really seems like she's making stuff up about your mom just so she can make herself the victim again for some dumb reason. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? That's so weird. That literally makes no sense, and I just don't know why you would do that. So yeah, I'm really glad you called your sister out on her garbage, because this kind of behavior, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled father-in-law is trying to control my wife and I with his money, and after dealing with this for so long, we finally decided that enough was enough and put our foot down to set some serious boundaries. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, my father-in-law left to go live in his home country when my wife was 10 years old. My mother-in-law got their marriage annulled 5 years before that after he literally cheated on her. He told my wife that he just couldn't make it in our country, and so he had to leave. Well, 3 years ago, my wife and I got married, and my father-in-law and his wife flew in for the wedding. During a dinner with them before the wedding, my father-in-law told us that he wanted to give us $20,000 towards a down payment on a home and another $50,000 after we bought the home. And you know what? We graciously accepted, and we've never asked him for money or about his money. He wanted to be very involved in the process and wanted to go to all the viewings with us. Eventually, he brought us to this 50-year-old condo his friend was selling, and it needed to be totally renovated. He then pressured us into buying it, and we told him that we couldn't afford it even with his help because of all the renovations and the high condo fees. But even though we were explaining it, he simply couldn't understand where we were coming from. They eventually went back home, and he kept asking my wife when we were going to buy a place. At this point, I knew that he was just some typical old person who got lucky with his home appreciation and thinks that buying real estate means that you're going to get rich, no matter what. So he's super anxious about his daughter buying property. We were renting an apartment from family for well below market rent, and we're saving a lot of money. We were not in a rush to buy anything and triple our housing cost. Our careers were just starting to take off too, so we were focused on them. My father-in-law then blows up on my wife over text messaging and basically says I'm a moron for not wanting to buy his friend's rundown condo and fix it up. He also said that he thinks I might take his money and somehow invest it in stocks and cryptocurrency, all because I told him that I invest in index funds inside my company pension. It was a whole novel of ranting and capital letters, just utter nonsense. Keep in mind, I've been nothing but friendly and cordial with him. Now, I know he's financially illiterate and got lucky with an inheritance and some home appreciation, so he was able to retire in some kind of way. He's never invested in stocks because they are, according to him, too risky. And you know what? My wife just claps back at him with her own wall of text, and then we just leave it as it is. Fast forward to a year later, and he ends up buying his friend's condo himself with cash and says he's going to live here half the year just to be closer to my wife. And it's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. So he eventually fixes it all up and then goes back home. A month before he plans to come back with his wife, he blows up on my wife over text messaging again. He is constantly sending us real estate listings that we can't afford, telling us he knows the area and what we should buy, with no consideration for what we want. We just politely tell him that we will take them into consideration, but he blows up on us again. And this time, he actually sends me a wall of text along with my wife. He tells me, "You're not children. Why haven't you bought yet?" And now at this point, I'm pissed off because he's insulting me. I tell him to keep his opinions to himself and that this conversation is over. He then tells me that I'm mistreating him. He then sends a picture to my wife of his stepdaughter and her husband in front of a house they bought that same month in their country with some sentences that said, "This is what happens when you listen to your parents." He tells my wife they gave them money towards their down payment. My wife then goes and asks the stepdaughter if my father-in-law gave them money, and my stepdaughter says no and explains it was actually her in-laws, who are incredibly rich by the way, that that gave them the money for the house. The stepdaughter then goes ballistic on my father-in-law for lying and for using her like that to insult us. And even my father-in-law's wife is now pissed at him too. My father-in-law and his wife fly here and just don't even contact us. Eventually, my father-in-law's wife reached out to my wife and basically says, "Hey there, we're here. Are you going to contact us?" And they didn't give any apology or anything like that. My wife goes to meet them and they say they just want to trust us and that we should basically expose all of our finances to them in order to build that trust. But my wife says, no, we're setting boundaries. If you want to help us, we don't want it to feel like a transaction where we have to do whatever you want us to do. It's either a gift or it's not. They constantly come across as though they are entitled to know about how much money we're making and how much we have. I still don't understand their motivations, and I think it's all just about trying to control us, and I'm honestly not having any of it. Oh man, you hit the nail on the head. That is literally the only reason they want to know your finances, and that is completely unacceptable. Seriously, why the heck would they act like that? It seems like they only gave you that money because they want to control what you do. And I just can't get over the fact that they try to force you to buy that rundown condo and be like, okay, time to fix it up. And it's like, dude, I'm not doing that. You're insane. So good for you for putting your foot down, because this situation is incredibly sketchy, and your father-in-law absolutely has a hidden agenda. Am I the jerk for not telling my friend that the supposedly volunteer gig we were going to sign up for is actually a paid gig that he flaked out on? Because right now he's framing this as if I set him up, when in reality, I knew just as much information as he did. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend, who we will call Ryan, are both in engineering. Last month, our department posted a call for volunteers to help run logistics at a local tech conference. It sounded like a good networking opportunity, so I signed up, and I told Ryan about it too, but he was like, well, it's not worth the time unless they're paying me for it. And honestly, fair enough. I then show up the first day, and to my surprise, they hand me a badge, free food vouchers, and say that we'll be getting a small stipend at the end. And this is not anything big, but still $300 for 2 days is not bad at all. Ryan then texts me while I'm there and is like, hey, how's it going? And I just say, it's not bad, it's pretty chill so far. I didn't mention the money because, for starters, I didn't know how long I would be staying, and secondly, he already decided it wasn't worth it. Anyways, after the event, I got a stipend and I post a picture of the staff group on Instagram, and Ryan sees it and says, wait, you got paid? And I said to him, well, yeah, it ended up being paid after all. When I said this, he flips out. He says I was shady for not telling him, that he would have come if he knew, and that I knew that he needed the cash. He then told a few people that I set him up just to miss out on this event. But it's like, listen, he made his call. I didn't know it was paid either at first, and I never lied to him. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I seriously don't know what to do. No, Ryan's an idiot. This guy literally made his decision, and that is not your problem. If this guy only wants to show up if he's getting paid and doesn't see the value in networking, then literally that is his fault and not yours. You clearly see this as a good thing, and he just can't understand that for some dumb reason. And for reference, both of them are 23 years old, so getting a good network going this early in your career is probably a really good thing. And if I was in their shoes, I would jump at the chance to have that. Like seriously, it's only a net positive and there's no reason not to go. So no, you're not the jerk, because at the end of the day, you are literally not responsible for your friend in the slightest. My idiotic doctor that I work with refuses to give me any orders to give medication to a patient severely in pain, resulting in one of the greatest verbal smackdowns that I've ever seen towards a doctor in my life. Here's what happened. So I used to work the night shift as a nurse, and one night many years ago, I received a patient on my unit from the emergency room. My patient was accompanied by his lovely wife, and when I introduced myself to them as being their nurse, I noticed immediately he was in severe pain. I reviewed his chart and his orders, and the doctor had not ordered any pain medications for him and just written to admit him to the unit. I called the doctor, who told me that he was not going to order anything until he reviewed the patient's chart and saw them. And honestly, I was so confused because he did see them in the emergency room, so why the delay? I tried to ask, but he insisted he would be up to the unit soon and then just hung up on me. I then apologized to the patient and the wife, relaying to them the doctor's message. Several minutes later, the doctor comes up and I ask him again for any pain medications I could give, as my patient was still having severe pain. Well, the doctor told me no, then proceeded to gather a bunch of charts, sitting at the nurse's station and just completely ignoring me. I went back to the patient's room again, apologized, and told them that the doctor was here, but was wanting to review charts first before making orders. The wife, I could tell, was becoming angry, as her poor husband was having severe pain with no relief. She then asked me where the doctor was, and you know what? I gladly escorted her to the nursing station. And then I told the doctor that the patient's wife wanted to talk to him. I remember her ripping into him about the weight, her husband's suffering, and his refusal to write any medication. He then immediately apologized and gave me orders for medications that could be given immediately. So yeah, sometimes having family members there who can yell at the doctors is honestly the best, because unfortunately, this is not something that I myself can do. Okay, that is honestly so disappointing, because you would think a doctor would be more proactive about their patient care. Like, that guy totally had his priorities mixed up, and that is completely unacceptable. This guy's sitting here in pain and you're like, I'm gonna look at charts first. I'm not doing anything until I review it. So yeah, this guy absolutely deserved to be yelled at, and I'm so glad that you brought the wife into the picture, because she really put him in his place in a way that he absolutely deserved. My husband is literally pooping his pants every single day and tries to claim and gaslight me into thinking that it's not a big deal. But right now I'm at my breaking point, as I feel like I'm going crazy dealing with this situation, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I'm a 30-year-old female and he is 32 years old. My husband got promoted at work, but it's not a paid promotion and it's mostly just pro bono. Regardless though, he says that it could lead to a higher paying position. Anyways, he is tired all the time lately with all these extra duties at work. So he's been less consistent with his hygiene, and in fact, he's stopped showering as often. His diet is awful, so I think that is contributing to this issue as well. He won't touch a vegetable, he eats a lot of gas station food, and a lot of fast food. It used to be that he would have really bad gas, like curl your hair bad, open every window in the house, and wait outside for it to dissipate bad. Eventually, he started taking his pills for it, and that eventually helped. But lately, when I do the laundry, I have been noticing huge stains in his underwear, and it is so disgusting. It smells awful. Sometimes I can smell it when he walks around the house or sits on something, so I just stopped doing his laundry. I told him it was unacceptable and foul to walk around with so much poop on your underwear. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. I didn't feel comfortable sharing a bed, so he's been sleeping on the couch for 2 months. He doesn't care about showering. He doesn't seem to care about his smell. He tries to guilt me about not sleeping in the bed, but I told him it's his own fault. If he would just shower when he gets home, then all of this can be fixed. I tried to explain how unsanitary it is. I told him I'm lonely and I'm not even being able to share a bed or a space with him. I offered to go to the doctor with him. I asked him if he was feeling depressed, and I even asked him if he would try therapy or counseling. I tried to get him to use a bidet, and I asked him if I could help with his paperwork at home so he could feel less burden at work. I literally threw out everything I could think of. But you know what? He just brushed me off, and he is insisting that I am overreacting and that it's normal for grown men to have some skid marks. He blames me for shutting him out, but I physically feel sick when I catch a whiff of him sometimes. The nail in the coffin was that he told me that sometimes when he farts, he presses his underwear against his butt cheek just to see if it feels wet. Yeah, it's that gross. And you know what? I told him that was it. I was so done. The line had been drawn and completely crossed. I told him that I don't see how we can ever be physically close again because I'm so disgusted by all of this. I mean, seriously, this is so childish. I can't even believe it's happening to me. I'm too embarrassed to tell a soul outside of my home about this, so that's why I'm venting it out here on the internet. I feel like this is not real life anymore, but I'm so lost over this. I truly care about him and I don't want to leave him. He is my husband. We have built a life together and I can tell he is struggling with something. But if he makes absolutely no effort to fix the issue, then guess what? It's going to be affecting the both of us. And it's honestly just not fair to me. How long am I supposed to sit by while this continues? I don't even want to go home half the time because of the smell as soon as I walk in the door. The worst part about it is him gaslighting me about it, saying I'm imagining things, that it doesn't smell as bad as I think it does, that I'm making it out to be a big deal when it's not. Normally, he is very receptive to my feelings, but lately he is just acting so defensive. We have been married 8 years, so it's crazy to me that things can change so suddenly, and it seems like he has stopped trying altogether. I have heard that depression can do this to people, but he doesn't seem to be in bad spirits at all, just more fatigued than usual. So seriously, I am absolutely at my wit's end because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, this is unbelievably gross. Seriously, your husband is crapping his pants and doing nothing about it. And this is far beyond any kind of like random instance. I can understand some situation where you're like, okay, I think I need to like clean myself in the shower more or something like that. Like I think anybody could run into that, even at the bare minimum, but this is literally an everyday occurrence. I honestly can't even understand how he has a job anymore if he goes into like an office space, because I'm pretty sure, at least from the places I've worked in the past, having good hygiene is a must. You can't go in smelling like actual poop and expect to have a job at the end of the day. That is not how this works, and that's completely unacceptable. And you as his wife should not have to put up with this. This is seriously gross. I just cannot get over that. And you know what? This guy is completely out of his mind if he thinks this is not a big deal, because it is. He's a fully grown 32-year-old male. Either something's going on with like mental health problems, or he is completely just given up on this marriage. So truly, I am honestly so sorry you're dealing with this. This is horrifying, and I would not not want to be in your shoes in the slightest. And for the sake of your happiness and not even your husband's, I really hope this gets worked out in one way or the other. Am I the jerk for yelling at my aunt after she kept pressuring me to marry her son? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 24-year-old female, and for context, I'm from Pakistan. So where I'm from, getting married to your cousins are common, and my aunt keeps pressuring me to marry her son, who's 25 years old, ever since I was a teenager. This started in my teen years, and my aunt would start making jokes such as, "You would make such a good daughter-in-law," or stuff like, "You and my son would make a great couple." Now, I used to brush it off back then, and I would just ignore it, hoping it would stop, but they never did. Instead, it started being more common. She started doing it every time we met, and I've shut her down politely every single time, saying I'm not interested and it won't ever happen. My mom knew how much it bothered me, but she didn't want to disrespect her elders, so she kept quiet and only spoke about it in private when my aunt messaged her. My mom told me to keep quiet and ignore it because she won't let it happen. But you know what? This was very uncomfortable. The whole thing gave my cousin some wrong ideas because he started messaging me in private, saying things like, "We're getting married in the future, so why aren't you talking to me now?" And you know what? I would just ghost him and ignore his messages. Just a few years ago, I finally lost my temper at a family gathering after my aunt said, "You're all grown up now. When are you gonna marry him? Our decision is final." The strong feeling of just being grossed out and the cringe just made me lash out. I then yelled at my aunt, calling her stupid for not listening to me and not understanding what no means. I used mild swear words as well, and it was a whole heated argument. To end the argument, my brother had to physically carry me out of the house, where I had a breakdown and we all just left her house. My mom was hurt by this a lot, and I could feel the pain in her voice whenever we spoke about this. She said that she just wishes I handled it differently. Well, after this came a series of unwanted toxicity and drama. My aunt yelled at my mom, making her look like a terrible person, all for supposedly letting that happen, and cut off all ties. And she even influenced my mom's oldest sister and brother to do the same thing. Well, my cousin got married to somebody else, and we had to find out about it from somebody else. He got married and divorced just later that year, and somehow my aunt managed to partially blame me and my mom for that divorce, even though we played no part in it. My mom deals with her siblings often, and sometimes they drag her into dramas. I've seen her cry in her room alone because of this, and it makes me feel so bad. I feel like I should have done better or done things differently for the sake of my mom. All this toxicity and drama would have been avoided if I simply just did things differently, and at this point, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Okay, first off, you are not the jerk for setting your foot down, because this is insane. I understand there's a cultural difference here and cousins can get married, but even at the bare minimum, imagine if this was some like family friend, and from the time you were a teenager, they were constantly pushing them on you no matter what, trying desperately to arrange a marriage that you absolutely did not sign up for, and never listening to you when you said no. I think in that scenario, I would lose my mind if that was happening to me. I would be pissed off and not be okay with this. So no, overall, you are definitely not the jerk, because what your aunt did to you is completely unacceptable. My entitled older sister is absolutely disgusting and does nothing to maintain her personal hygiene. And after her bedroom became a pigsty, she decided to move into my bedroom while I was at college simply because she refuses to clean up her own bedroom, leaving me in such a state that I'm honestly disgusted and incredibly shocked, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so the issues that I've been having with my family have been ongoing for almost a decade, and this really might be my breaking point. Close to 3 years ago, my mother moved into her new rented house. After her and my dad split, she was the occupier of the old house, but my dad's name was on the mortgage and they decided to sell it and split what remained. Now, my mom lives in a council house with my two siblings, one older sister and one younger sister. Even since the move, things have been tense and disastrous. My family has an issue with being clean, stemming from a pet buying obsession, reinforced laziness, and a complete disregard for personal hygiene. I often had to carry the burden of keeping most of the house clean, except for people's bedrooms. I cleaned the bathroom, the kitchen, the hallways, and the living room, as well as my bedroom for as long as I still live there. Several incidents with my mother meant I began spending less and less time there, with my dad and my grandparents thankfully being really accommodating. And currently, I'm away at university, but still I legally live there at my mother's house. Now it's my Easter break, and I decided to first stay at my dad's before visiting my mom's. Now, it's important to note that it is completely normal for me to just show up sometimes. Scheduling can be weird, and I have my own house keys and bedroom, so it was never an issue. Well, that is, except for this Easter. I had learned last night, the night before I was set to show up, that my older sister had now moved into my bedroom, a bedroom which I had stayed in since moving in, and that I had paid for all the furniture and even decorated for. And this was for a month, all without being asked or even notified. Now, you might be wondering, what was the reason behind this? Well, my older sister's bedroom is a tip. She still was at university while my mother moved house, but now she is back at home. At first, she was given a pop-up bed to sleep on, with plans to buy her an actual one for her bedroom, provided that room was to be made for it. Well, her bedroom is now a nightmare, partially self-imposed and partially imposed upon her. Broken furniture, bags of rubbish, dirty clothing and dishes everywhere. Classic nightmare scenario for me. It is a year's worth of mess without any major attempt at cleaning, to where now she can't even use her pop-up bed, although she stopped using it anyways by her own choosing. She has for the past year been in her room for the day and then went to sleep in the living room on the sofa at night. And this is also in a foul and disgusting state due to pests, but it's no longer my domain, so it's like whatever. I have repeatedly offered to help clean out her room and to get it into a livable state, going so far as to offer to hire a skip so the entire household can get rid of the junk and bin bags, which are genuinely piled up at this point. But she said it was fine and that it would be sorted. Now, I had before been asked whether she could temporarily inhabit my bedroom, considering I wasn't there most of the time, and my room was in a much nicer condition. Under normal circumstances, I might have, but my sister literally doesn't shower. She doesn't clean up rubbish, she leaves moldy food around for weeks or even months, and she cannot be trusted to not damage things. I made my discomfort with her taking my bedroom very clear, especially when asked about it. And again, I have repeatedly offered to help her sort out her living space so that it can be tidy and she can just have a normal space. But no, apparently that wasn't good enough, and clearly my bedroom should be given up for her sake. Now, in my eyes, this is entitled by itself, but the tipping point for me was when she replied to my messages about not being told that she had moved into my bedroom by complaining that I hadn't informed my family ahead of time that I would be coming home for Easter, which is, by the way, a thing that I have never had to do before, nor had I ever even been asked to do so before, which is only an issue because she took my bedroom without permission. Now, the situation might be being improved, with my mother only sleeping at her house half the time anyways, and she's offered up her bedroom for the weekend, but this incident has left me pretty hurt and really distrustful. My space can no longer be trusted to be my space. I can't even count on being told my room was being slept in, and it's just left me pretty emotionally exhausted. Ultimately, I think it should have been my call to let her stay in my room or not, but at the bare minimum, I should have been told about it and have been given time to sort out the rest of my stuff should I want it removed from the room itself. It especially shouldn't be painted as me being in the wrong for daring to be annoyed that my room was taken without my permission, simply because I didn't tell them I intended to visit without enough notice. What should I do? Oh my gosh, I would be so pissed off. This is honestly so infuriating. For starters, you literally pay for the room. You pay for all the furniture, you're the reason that place looks actually nice, even somewhat, and it quite literally is your space. So for anybody to try and come in and be like, oh, we're taking over because my place is a mess, and yours is the only clean place in the house. Like, if that's not proof enough that they are the problem, then I just don't know what is. Seriously, they're going about this acting like you're at fault all because you didn't say, oh, I'm coming home by the way. I sure hope my stuff isn't taken over. Like, what? What are you talking about? I pay for this room. This is mine. You can't just take it, dude. So yeah, your older sister is completely out of line, and your mom's out of line for allowing this to happen, because that space is yours, especially since you paid for it. And the fact that anybody's disrespecting that, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An idiotic company keeps calling me at all hours of the day, wanting to contact me about their stupid business. But despite the fact that I signed myself up for the do not call list, these people literally refuse to listen, forcing me to get some petty revenge in a way that I'm sure they were never expecting. Here's what happened. So back in the mid-2000s, my family and I lived in West Michigan. I had signed up for the do not call list, and it had been generally successful. Even with this, a local home renovation company started calling my home landline. Every time they called, we would tell them we were not interested and to please remove us from their call list. But still, we got calls from them. Fast forward about 6 months to a weekend where my father and I were installing some fencing. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and we walk out the front door and go to the back of the house. When we walk out of the house, I notice a 20-something-year-old in khakis and a golf shirt walking down the sidewalk, but I didn't think anything about it. As Dad and I are getting our tools together in the garage on the back of the backyard, this guy walks up to us, and yes, he walked through the yard uninvited and tries to make small talk and introduces himself as a sales schmuck from the previously mentioned company. He says to me, "Anything I can help you guys with today?" And we say, "Sure, grab a bag of red mixed concrete and follow me." And no surprise, but he declined, so I told him in a polite way to go away. As this of course irritated me, later that day I looked up the company company online, and I found out the name of their head of marketing. I reached out to him on Monday and explained that I didn't appreciate them continuing to call me, and I most definitely didn't appreciate his sales schmuck wandering around my yard. And the best part is, I got lots of apologies once he realized I was serious. After that call, I got 1 or 2 more calls from them before it stopped completely, and most likely the reason they stopped was because each time they called us, I called him and I read him the riot act, making it very clear that I don't want them calling me. Oh man, this is hilarious because my god, I think we've all been there. Some stupid company that you want nothing to do with is not getting the picture. They don't understand that no, you don't want to deal with them, and it's super frustrating that they're not listening. They even had somebody showing up to your house, like come on, that is so annoying. So honestly, I think the fact that you're calling them directly and calling up the person in charge of marketing, like that is brilliant. That probably really got it through to them that no, you're not interested, because their behavior was super inappropriate, and I don't blame you for getting pissed off. I was stripped of my manager position at my job, all because I was in the hospital for 2 months, resulting in my company suffering as I maliciously complied and refused to do any of my former manager duties. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was a manager of a programming department. I initially had 5 programmers reporting to me, and I was able to spend half of my time programming and my other half managing. I had always gotten exceeds or far exceeds expectations on my annual reviews. About 10 years later, my team had 25 people, and I was spending less and less time programming. Fast forward a few years later, and I missed 2 months during the year for a surgery and hospital stay, and in my annual review, my boss, who knew nothing about programming, told me that I was not doing a good job, and the programming department was missing deliverable dates, which is probably because I was in the hospital. They wanted me to go back to just programming, and it was there that I was stripped of my manager title, and I only focused on programming. And while I was pissed off, I told him that I can do that. I told my former staff what had happened and told them to direct all questions to my boss, who knew 0 things about programming. He was overwhelmed, and soon senior management figured out that my boss was the problem and not me. They then canned him and replaced him with the vice president of programming in the United Kingdom, and she was great since she started as a programmer and was an excellent boss in general. Since I was now just a programmer, all of the managers were in the United Kingdom, and I told my former staff to direct all questions to their new boss in the United Kingdom. Since there was a 6-hour time difference and we only overlapped 2 or 3 hours each day, that made getting questions answered in a timely fashion quite difficult. In the meantime, my health wasn't the best, and my doctor told me I should work maybe 4 days a week, or at most 32 hours of work a week, so that my health wouldn't continue to suffer. Since my employer was a strict 40-hour work week company, I looked for another job and got 8 job offers in about a month, and I was ready to resign. Finally, after a few months, my new boss asked me to be a manager again because of the time difference between the United States and the United Kingdom, and because I have the most experience as a programmer in the company. Well, instead, I gave her my resignation and I explained why. She then asked me what it would take to get me to stay, and I told her that I wanted a 10% raise and that I wanted to work 4 days a week at 32 hours max. I then gave her 24 hours to respond, and surprisingly, she spoke to the higher-ups and finally came back the next day and agreed. Wow, what a twist. Like seriously, I did not expect that. I was expecting them to be like, oh no, we can't pay you that much, and then like turn around and treat you like garbage. Like I really didn't expect that to work out. Like that really is amazing. So good for you for showing these people exactly why they're so stupid, while also pretty much showing that yeah, you're super valuable. Because if they had just allowed you to do your job, despite your obvious health problems, this all could have been taken care of without half the headache. Am I the jerk for kicking my guests out of my house 11 hours before their flight just so I can ensure that my day off is actually meant for a day of rest? Because right now they're calling me selfish, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend and his wife have made plans to visit us this summer for a weekend stay. The flight is 2 hours, so not really a long journey for them. We have our home professionally cleaned regularly, and we go all in to be good hosts to our guests. However, with any good thing, some people try to take advantage. I usually will take an extra day from work after guests leave to get rest, or even tidy up the house just a little bit. It's just a peaceful time for me to return to the normalcy of our household after being in host mode. Before my friend booked his flight, my husband let it slip that I will not be working the Monday after my friends stay with us. Well, the next thing I know, my friend tells me that they will be flying out on a red-eye the Monday that I took off for rest. This means they will arrive early Friday morning and leave late Monday night. To that, I responded that I will be taking them to the airport as early as 8 o'clock Monday morning so I can have my day of rest like I planned. My friend tells me that he doesn't understand why they can't just hang out at our place or have us show them around town more that Monday since they have a late flight. But I explained to them that that day off is for me to rest, not to continue to be their host. I told them that they are more than welcome to leave their luggage here if they want to go explore explore on their own, but we will not be hosting them or playing tour guide after Monday morning. He goes on to admit that it was cheaper for him to book the later flight on Monday, and that it's not a big deal for him and his wife to just hang out at my house all day until it's time for them to fly out. Keep in mind that I will have to take them to the airport or pay for rideshare because he refuses to pay. I will also have to feed them. I told him that they are welcome to visit and stay with us, but staying at our house all day Monday is not an option, and he needs to make other arrangements. He's now accusing me of being a horrible friend, and his wife is saying that we're the jerks. So honestly, am I at fault here? Because right now I'm really frustrated. Oh man, this is really stupid because no, you are definitely not the jerk. You literally just said, hey, you can't stay Monday. I'm sorry, but it's not happening. I'm gonna take you to the airport. You're gonna figure something out because that day really is for you to rest. And if they were good friends, they would absolutely understand. The fact that they want to try and sit there and argue with you and be like, oh, come on, we could just hang out at your house. This isn't that big of a deal. And it's like, yeah, it is a big deal. You're literally intruding on my life and I don't want that. So no, you're not the jerk. This is really dumb in my opinion. And the fact that they're trying to guilt trip you about this, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. My father's behavior towards my boyfriend is disgusting, as he literally has implied he would take him out if he ever met him. And right now I'm worried about the safety of my boyfriend, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female and I'm turning 18 in a few months, and I also graduated high school. I met a boy this year and we started dating, and it's been great. Nothing explicit or weird. We genuinely have fun and enjoy each other's company. Soon, real life is about to hit us and we plan to fight for this relationship. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why do all of this for a high school relationship? It's just gonna end anyways. Well, I feel like my father also feels that same way. So truly, this is nothing new that I'm hearing. My father has always been in my life, always provided for me, always taught me wrong from right, but he's also been the first man in my life to show me disappointment, mistreatment, insecurity, narcissism, and over self-esteem and entitlement to the T. My father is a man who is very full of himself. He hates people, he looks down on the people around him as if he's a god, speaks highly of himself at all times, plays overly too much, invades privacy, and he's very in his own head about everything. I fear that's also where I get some of my mental illness from, because I'm so much like him, and I unfortunately realized it after my mother complained to me about my responses and behavior over the years. All my life, my father has told me about men, and even said that if one of them ever came into my life, he would take them out, if you know what I mean. Or he would say he would do horrible things to him if there ever was a him in my life. I recently told my parents separately that I was dating this boy, my mom first and then my dad. My mother was upset that I didn't say anything sooner, which I then went to my dad and he seemed okay with it, but it was the little stuff he said after the conversation. My father has brought up conversation in regards to the guy I'm dating that were intimidating and harsh on him for just being a man around me. My father has even made comments on his race, trying to be funny. I cannot trust my father with meeting him. Many people don't like my father, especially friends of mine, knowing the things he's done or said, and I don't feel comfortable, and I'm afraid he's going to scare the guy away, which is what I don't want. I'm growing to love this boy, and I don't want to sound like I'm being some hopeless romantic of young love, but we both are putting our hands in to stay together after graduating. I don't want to cut my father off because he's always been there for me, but I feel as if I should keep most of my personal life business, like dating, to myself, all because of his behavior. I just don't want him to invade and ruin this for me, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, if I was in your shoes, I would be warning my boyfriend immediately. I would tell him, hey, my dad is a little insane and he might try to hurt you. And that is absolutely not okay. Like seriously, that is some scary stuff. So yeah, the way your dad is acting is super creepy and in my opinion, absolutely unacceptable. An entitled, obnoxious employee tries to cut a customer in front of us in line, despite the fact that we were literally almost done with the guy we were working with, leaving me scratching my head and realizing that that guy was being super rude and entitled. Here's what happened. So my husband and I recently did a home improvement project. We shopped at a local big box store for lumber and other supplies, and the store will cut the lumber and plywood for you, and we had about 5 cuts we needed, all very different, so it had to be done one piece at a time. We waited in line behind a few people also having cuts done, and this was no problem. It is the system, and we waited patiently for our turn. When the employee helping us was on our 3rd cut, an older man came up and began waiting. They had one 2x4 that needed cut. They were patiently waiting, and one of them went to grab some other stuff and left the lady there in line behind us. Another staff member came up to the lady and spoke with her and then yelled out to the employee, who we will call Keith for the sake of the story, by saying, hey Keith, this lady has one simple cut I need to do. Well, Keith didn't hear him because he had earplugs in and the saw was really loud, and he was on our 4th cut. So the employee yelled out again, just one fast cut, and Keith had to turn off the machine, take out his earplugs and say, what? The other employee then then said it again, and Keith was grabbing our last board to cut, and I politely said to the other employee, well, we only have one more cut to do, we'll be done really quickly. After I said this, the other employee almost rolled his eyes, but caught himself and just said okay. And you know what? I thought it was so strange that he thought we should stop and just let him go ahead. They were fine waiting, and she and I even chatted a bit when the employee kind of stomped away. We had waited our turn as everyone has to, and it was no problem. You get in line when you get there regardless of what anyone else is doing, at least that's what I thought. My husband said the other employee was trying to go on lunch, and that may be why. But regardless, I thought it was super rude and incredibly entitled. Yeah, that's really weird to have some other employee at this big box store come up and be like, wait a second, you guys are in line, but let's ignore that line real quick. It makes me wonder if maybe he knew this person in line or something like that, and like he was trying to like pull some strings or something along those lines. I don't know. It just seems weird because you guys were almost done, and the person behind you was maybe like a minute away from getting this done. So for him to get all pissy about it just really doesn't make any sense to me. And in my opinion, he was completely out of line. I'm convinced that my girlfriend may be cheating on me, because after I caught her with another man in their car for over 40 minutes, I'm now questioning everything about our relationship, leaving me wondering what I should do next. Here's what happened. To start things out, I was planning to see my girl after work. We share locations, so I usually check to see where she's at, but I noticed that she was at an address where the house number was 1040, whereas her current place is 1052. When I got there, her location showed that she was in someone's driveway, but I couldn't see her anywhere. I FaceTimed her twice, but she didn't pick up, and instead she texted me saying, can I call you later? So I stayed near the location for a bit, and after a minute or two, I saw her getting out of a car with tinted windows and the lights off. I then honked to let her know that I was there. She then came over and told me it was a guy from work, and they were just talking about business-related stuff, and apparently they'd been sitting in the car for over 40 minutes. I tried not to overreact, but honestly, I definitely felt something was off. I then asked her if that was the guy's driveway, and she said no. So I asked, well then why didn't he just park on the street and leave his lights on? She then told me it was to avoid making a U-turn and to save gas. For reference, we've been together for 7 months now, and I don't want to jump to conclusions or show insecurity, but something about this just doesn't feel right. And at this point, I'm starting to wonder if maybe she cheated on me. What should I do? Okay, I've got to be honest with you. Anybody going to somebody else's car for 40 minutes is having much more than just a business meeting. And also, why would they have business meetings in someone's tinted car on the side of the road? Not to mention the fact that this is probably what, just right down the street from where she lives? And sure, you don't want to jump to conclusions, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would be like, wait a second, what's going on here? It really looks like she's cheating on you, and that is not okay. It's also really weird that she had really convenient excuses for everything this guy was doing, from where he was parked to what they were doing. Like for me, her story's almost a little too straight, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, she has an answer for everything. But it's like, why would you have an answer for that? Why not just say something like, oh, I have no idea, this is just where he parked, or something like that? Because her response really makes me believe that she just made it up on the spot. She's lying to you, this is not actually what happened, because this guy would have no reason to have that kind of dialogue with this lady. What, did he pull up and say, oh, I'm parked here because I want to save gas and I don't want to have a U-turn. Hop in the car, let's have a business meeting. Like, no, that's not happening. This business-related meeting could have easily been a phone call at best. So yeah, it does seem like something really sketchy happened, but in my opinion, it would be incredibly foolish to make any kind of accusation here, especially without some kind of like hard-hitting evidence. Like, you really need to figure that out first before anything else, because I can see it now. I can see her freaking out and be like, oh my god, you think I'm cheating on you? And then this becomes even worse, because if she's not cheating on you, she will probably never let that go, because honestly, who would? Like, I don't want to be accused of cheating, especially if I haven't done it. But also, if she is cheating, she's probably just gonna pretend like, oh my god, you accused me of cheating, now I have an excuse to break up with you. Which I guess still works in figuring out the truth, but it also leaves like a lot of question marks for you because you don't know if it's the truth. So personally, if I was in your shoes, I would work really hard to find any kind of evidence, some kind of concrete proof that yes, she is or isn't cheating on you. Because jumping to a conclusion, even though the evidence really is kind of there in my opinion, will only cause you a lot of problems. My entitled coworker tries to get me in trouble, all because I have my phone out while on the job. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally ruining his weekend plans in quite possibly the most satisfying way possible. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work for an armored car company. Now this is something I did for a few years when I was in university and waiting for a position in what would be my future career. It was good money and lots of people did it as their full-time jobs, but I wanted more out of life than a mindless job. Because I was classified as part-time, I did not have a set shift. I mostly covered for people when they were sick, took vacation, worked unscheduled shifts, or worked shifts created specifically for part-timers. All in all, I was working full-time hours almost every week. Most of the full-timers loved working with me. The way the company company worked is that you were set up for a 13-hour shift. However, if you managed to complete your run in less than that, you would still get paid the full shift. I was young, I moved fast, and I didn't care about breaks, even if it meant that I could get paid for 3 or 4 hours to sit at home instead of working. So whenever I took over for someone older who was just on autopilot, I could get their coworker home in a fraction of the time. Now, one of the full-time workers, a real Karen, who we will call Kyle for the sake of the story, was just the worst. For some reason, he took it upon himself to tattle on people for anything that he didn't like. If someone weren't wearing their collared shirt under their sweater, he would run and tell management. And as an FYI, working in the summer heat in a literal metal box, wearing a bulletproof vest makes you want to shed layers. Also, if someone was wearing black instead of blue pants, he would tell management. If someone was wearing a company hat that has the company logo but is not our official uniform, he would also tell management. So basically, no one in the company liked Kyle. Well, one week, Kyle's coworker was taking vacation, and my boss scheduled me to replace him. The run is pretty easy. It's a commercial day shift, so 90% of the stops are retail stores with less than a few $100 in cash. Because of the amount of money, no one has ever had a problem with one person jumping out and running in, grabbing the money and coming back, while the second person, usually the driver, stays with the truck. In this shift, I was the driver, so that's what I did. When Kyle was in the store, I would just navigate my phone, look at the people in the area, make sure there were no threats and that I wasn't parked in anyone's way, but mostly it was just wasting time. Well, on one stop, Kyle came back and I was just finishing up writing an email, and apparently Kyle wasn't too happy with me taking a few extra seconds to start going. And unbeknownst to me, he took a picture of me behind the wheel on my phone, and I had no idea until the next shift came around the next day, where management came to talk to me about my texting and driving. I then told them that I had no idea what they were talking about, but my manager said that they had proof I was doing it, and if I did it again, I would be written up. I went to talk to another coworker who is also the union representative to figure out what in the world is going on, and he told me that Kyle took a picture of me yesterday and complained that I was doing it. When I heard this, I was so pissed off, and it's here that I decided to get some petty revenge. My shifts with Kyle were for 3 days at 13-hour shifts, namely Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Well, today was now Thursday, our last shift of this run, and this shift was not retail pickups. It was the run that takes all of the money collected from the previous week and brings it to our provincial depot about 400 kilometers away. The entire run has only about 30 minutes of work and about 9 hours of driving. If you did the math, this is one of those runs where if you get it done quickly and if traffic is on your side, you can get paid for a lot of unworked time. It was also the last shift of the week, which meant a long, gorgeous weekend in the middle of summer as soon as we were done. But with that in mind, I was going to make sure that this shift lasted as long as possible. If he didn't want me to break any rules, then I would make sure that I happily obliged. I drove exactly the speed limit the entire way. I even stopped for a 1-hour lunch break, which is given to us, but I had not witnessed anyone take it in the years I'd been here because of the rules that we had about pay. In fact, we were so behind, we reached the major city our depot was located in literally right at rush hour, which is something our early start time was designed to prevent. All in all, what should have taken about 9 hours to do ended up taking 14 hours, an extra 5 hours where he just had to sit there and watch me in silence. To make things sweeter, a few times during the shift, he even had to call his wife and let her know that he wouldn't be home early enough to go to the cottage and that they would have to leave the next day instead. I heard from other coworkers how furious he was and how I had ruined his plans for the weekend. But you know what? All I could do was smile because this guy was a jerk and he absolutely deserved it. Oh, I love this story so much because I hate working with people like Kyle. They nitpick everything you do, they're always trying to get you in trouble, and at the drop of a hat, they would betray your trust immediately. Seriously, like anybody who has ever worked a job would see your coworker on their phone and not think anything of it. But with people like Kyle, and trust me, there's a lot of them, they just can't stand the fact that someone else is not doing exactly what they feel they need to do. And instead of just leaving them alone, they make it their personal goal to get them in trouble. So truly, I love the way that you got this revenge, because this guy absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My fiance and I moved to a certain race-dominated town, and now he's acting odd, almost as if he's ashamed that I'm black. And at this point, I'm kind of convinced that he might be cheating on me, and I'm left wondering what happened and what I should be doing. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I moved here 3 weeks ago for his new job, and I am so proud of him for this. I helped him during the interview process. I shaved his beard, I lined it up, I gave him certain things I used when I worked in an office, I picked out his clothing, etc. And we were excited about the the opportunity. Although I'd been 2 hours from my family and friends, we thought it would be a great start. Plus, the pay is amazing. Obviously, my mother had some issues with it, but still wished us the best. Meanwhile, my son's father went insane, but I said I would gladly meet him somewhere closer for pickup and drop-offs, and for reference, I have sole custody, so I double-checked and I was allowed to change schools and move our son. He had notice of it, but only got mad when I turned down his proposal to date again. He thought my fiance getting a new job far away somehow meant that I would go back to him. You know, his cheating, narcissistic self. Now, here's where the real issue comes into play. I'm Black Caribbean and my fiance is white Canadian, and this new city is primarily white. I've gotten way more stares here in the last 3 weeks than I have my entire life. For example, I was driving to pick up my son from school, and this lady almost crashed her car, breaking her neck staring at me. This other gentleman in his car beside me at a red light, again, kept staring at me. Just today, I had an older man I saw sitting on his porch leave his porch to walk 4 houses down where I parked my car, just to walk next to my car and peep inside. Whether my fiance wants to admit it or not, I'm being stared at like I'm some kind of new species of human. I started to notice when my fiance and I go grocery shopping, where he would say, let's separate and meet up when it's time to pay. And I thought this was odd, but I just kind of let it go. But you know what? The same thing keeps happening no matter where we go. He would say for us to separate. This also happened again at an antique store, and we would be getting lots of looks and he would literally just disappear. Like I did not even know how long he was gone while I was literally talking to myself before I turned around to see him gone. He claimed he told me he was going to the washroom, but he definitely did not. I know his job is very important in this town, and he did mention everyone at his job is all Caucasians. Not a single one of them are any other race. So now I have this gut feeling that he does not want them to know that I'm black because he's afraid that they'll think of him differently, and that might be why when we're out that he wants to be apart. I brought this up to him, and he said he just felt that he was being too clingy lately, but yet yesterday we visited old friends and he was all over me like he usually is. I feel like this is a grounds for a breakup because clearly he's uncomfortable about being seen with me in public, which makes me extremely self-conscious and just really sad. I feel pretty much even more alone. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to their situation. Here's what they had to say. Okay, I'm gonna try and make this short. I spoke to him again about how I'm feeling, and he kind of just brushed it off. Then I said that it's best that my son and I leave so that he won't have to worry about being embarrassed by us. He then came home from work and started apologizing and crying, saying that he can see why I thought that, but it was far from the truth. He said he was just stressed with work and wasn't thinking. He promised that he'll take me out this weekend and treat me like he always does. Now, I wanted to believe him, but something was off. He left and came back home after work with some flowers and wine, but then immediately started an argument and shouted. And you know what? Here's what I just realized last night. Last week, we went to the gym and he wanted to schedule the trainer for yesterday at 6:00 p.m., which I thought was odd since that's our usual dinner time, but I just thought to myself, whatever, it's just one missed dinner. But then I told him my trainer emailed me and wanted to combine our training and that he'll email me to let me know how my fiance's training went. Well, when I told my fiance this, he immediately said, maybe it's best he reschedule for Saturday so we can all just meet. Now, last night, he weirdly started the argument at 5:54 p.m. and he claimed he needed to go to the gym to calm down. But literally, he put on his favorite shirt, his favorite date shoes, and his fancy watch. He then stormed out of the door and just left. He then started messaging me and I said I thought it was odd that he got dressed up to go to the gym. Well, within 5 minutes, he came back saying he was just going to go to the pub close by and started talking normally, expressing how much he loves me. Thinking back, I did notice when it was dinner time on the weekdays, he wouldn't finish his dinner or said he wasn't hungry, but on weekends, he can eat 3 meals a day. He went from saying how excited he was for me to visit his work to saying that it'll be best if I come home when he's more set up. I also noticed that he would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning rather than at 8 o'clock in the morning on weekdays. I thought maybe he was just stressed out, but last night, the fact that he started an argument dressed up and left around the exact same time he scheduled his gym training, to me just seems a bit fishy. I'm starting to believe that maybe he's having an affair and somehow he's embarrassed for her to find out that I'm black. Everyone at his work knows that he's engaged, and the man who gave him his position is his friend of 20 years. So I don't think he's hiding he's in a relationship at work. But right now, I honestly don't even know. Can someone cheat with someone in just 3 weeks? Because right now, I seriously feel like I'm losing everything. Oh man, first off, I just want to say this is so messed up because you do not deserve this. You literally moved there to try and make sure that your fiance had a good place to work, and you gave him so much of your time and energy to try and be a supportive partner and be there for him. So the fact that he's now seemingly turning his back on you, in my opinion, is so awful. that really hurts, and I'm so sorry that happened. Like, you just don't deserve that in the slightest. Because you are 100% correct. It really seems like he's embarrassed to be around you, and that is not fair for you at all. So overall, I hope this works out in some way in your favor, because from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like he might be cheating. And that, in my opinion, is not okay. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. My friends wouldn't give me a definitive answer about my birthday party, so I decided to cancel it, as I didn't want to embarrass myself with no one showing up. But now it's making me question if I'm the jerk in this situation, or if I was correct for canceling. Here's what happened. Okay, so my birthday was a couple of weeks ago, and I decided to throw two parties since I have two groups of friends who don't really mix that well. I had one party with friend group A on the weekend of my birthday, and planned one for the week after with friend group B. When I messaged friend group A, asking if people were free, they all replied within a couple of days, saying that they could come and how excited they were. However, when I asked group B about 3 weeks in advance of the party, most people took a week to reply, with me chasing them about it. And even after that, the majority replied by saying, I can probably come, and no one would actually give me a straight answer. Now, as a side note, I've had some problems with this group of friends leaving me out quite a few times before, whether that's going to parties, going to the movies, or going shopping, etc. And this is all without asking if I would come along first. And this is despite the fact that I spend most of my time with this group. Even when it was 3 days until the party, when I asked people in person, everyone still just said, well, probably I might show up. So because of that, I just ended up canceling the party because I was worried that people might not turn up on the day and just come up with some lame excuse by saying like, oh, I felt sick or something like that. I didn't want to risk the embarrassment of anyone finding out that no one came on that day, but I don't know if I'm just overreacting. So please, can anyone tell me if this is normal? Or is it as odd as I think it is that they wouldn't give me a definitive answer? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, anytime someone gives a soft answer like that, where they're like, oh, I might be there, I probably will be there, that in my opinion means they're not doing it, and that really is the answer that you need to take. It's also worth noting that in my opinion, friend group B really does not sound like your friends. Maybe it sounds like people that you want to be friends with, so you spend a lot of time with them, but as someone who's been in that situation, I can guarantee you that friend group A is probably way better. Because guess what? At least they're showing up to your birthday party. They're willing to be there for your party instead of friend group B who's like, oh, maybe I'll show up. I don't know. It depends. Like, that's lame. If someone has a friend that's having a party, you want to be there, especially for their birthday. Like, come on. So no, you're not the jerk for canceling it because in my opinion, it doesn't sound like anyone from that other group was going to show up. And I completely agree. That would have been devastating and humiliating if nobody showed up. An entitled elderly couple literally just walk around my restaurant trying to choose seats that they want to go to instead of going to the ones that we're trying to assign them, as they made my life a living nightmare. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened last night during a day where I was working a host shift instead of server or expo. You know, you will always get those people that are really picky about their seats, like extremely picky, and they will refuse anything else. I don't get it personally all the time, but that's because I'll sit you just about anywhere. Though I do understand about joint issues, as I've experienced joint problems since I was about 16 years old, so it's not always comfortable depending on where you sit. However, this was just because they were being really picky about their seats. There was no other reason. It starts with an elderly couple. We were busy, the dining room was full, and the high tops in the bar area are filled up thanks to two 12 tops taking up an entire row, and regular diners taking up the other row, and the bar itself was also full. In the dining room, we have 7 booths and 5 tables, and 2 of those tables fit 6 tops. With both areas full, me and the other host were worried about telling this couple it could be a wait, since we didn't have any extra chairs available for them to sit and wait because of the large parties using the extra chairs. Well, in a stroke of luck, an 8 top in the dining room got up and freed up a table. Specifically, the 6 top table was made to fit 8 by separating a 2 top table from another, which usually is kept together to fit 4, meaning that this was the first available place for them to sit at. I go to take them over to the table while the busser finished cleaning the separated piece off, and the other host helped him put the table back together. The wife then looks at the table and says, "No, I don't like this one. I want a different one. It is too small." I think to myself that maybe it's because the tables had not been put back together just yet that she thought it would be a tiny table for them to work with. So I politely said to her, "Oh, no, we're actually putting these tables back together, so you'll have plenty of room. Don't worry." She then shakes her head and says, "No, I don't like it. We want something else." So I think to myself, yikes, we don't have anything else. I then asked them to wait there just for a moment while I check to see on the other tablet at the host stand if anyone might be checked out and leaving soon. Well, the moment I walked away, the other host hurries over and tells me that they found a seat. Now, where, you might be asking? Well, they picked the 6 top table at the back that just opened as well. The host that told me this, by the way, is new new, so she figured it was fine, but I calmly let her know that this isn't alright because we aren't allowed to sit any parties less than 5 at the 6 top tables. Well, now she's worried, anxious about having to break the news to them, but I tell her it's fine, I will handle it. And instead, she just had to check any booths that might be opening up. So I walk over and I go see the couple. The husband has already made himself comfortable and the wife is sitting too. I then politely tell them, hey, I'm sorry, but only parties of 5 or more can sit here. We can't have you sit here, but we will find you a table soon. The husband has said nothing this entire time, but the wife looks at me with annoyance and says, but we're sat here, we want this table. Now, instead of arguing, I do the best move I can while being polite and keep the customer service going. So I just repeat myself, which is my way of saying, okay, cool, that doesn't change anything and I'm not budging, so I'm sorry, but you gotta move. And while they are now in a huff, they reluctantly get up. As I try to tell them that a booth is getting up, they walk right past me and straight to the bar area. I try to follow after them, and I think that they're gonna sit at the tiny 2 top round tables we have, but no, they took one look at them, shook their heads, and just kept moving. They made the effort of squeezing through the 2 12 tops that took up a whole row, which were both birthday parties full of drunk and excited people that don't realize that chairs are for sitting, not for standing around while they crowd the entire walkway. The husband then heads to the very last high top, which has been pushed in position to join the rest of the tables for that party. It was just empty at the moment except for a kids menu because they had a few kids with them. The kids were just not there that second because they went to mess around with a golf arcade game. The husband then just stares at the party, which was multiple people telling him he can't sit there and that they have that table and that the people are in fact using that table. But he just stares at them and says nothing. And instead, the wife joins him and settles her stuff down. I then come over and I tell them that they can't sit there and that the party has that table and that a booth did just get up that we were trying to sit them at. The husband finally speaks irate and says to me, well, why did you say that? And it's like, yeah, well, okay, I tried to, but sure, it's my fault, right? They got their booth, but they sat down before it could be wiped off. The busser is then forced to wipe it off with them sitting there, trying not to accidentally spray them while he does it. The cleaning spray diluted with a ton of water doesn't do that much, and it just makes your tongue numb if you digest it a little. But of course, you still don't want to get it on anyone. He finishes wiping it off and it will dry fast. But the wife insists the other host take a table napkin and dry it for them. The host tries and it doesn't work, and now they're in a huff about it again. But like, why did you even sit down when you saw the busser was still cleaning the table? If you waited the 1 minute more, the table would have already been dry. I asked them to wait for him to finish cleaning, but they ignored me and sat anyways. This all happened in the span of 7 minutes, and it honestly just felt so weird to me that someone would act so entitled. Oh man, I've worked in customer service like this, specifically in the restaurant industry, and people who act like this drive me insane. They walk around the restaurant like they own the place. They're trying to pick up tables that don't belong to them, even if it means they're disrupting other people. And that is so obnoxious because, of course, just like in this story, they're gonna turn it against you and be like, oh, this is your fault for not saying something. And it's like, dude, I tried to talk to you. I literally don't know what else to tell you. I said you shouldn't sit there and you just didn't listen. But somehow, sure, it's my fault, I guess. So yes, I completely understand where the original poster is coming from because that is incredibly annoying. Am I overreacting for not giving my parents over $2,000 out of my student loan refund just so they can pay their taxes? Because right now they're really pissed off at me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I got into a huge argument with my parents yesterday. For context, I'm a broke college freshman living 5 hours away from home, and they texted me asking for a favor, which was really odd. When we got on a call, my mom said they needed $2,500 by tomorrow just so they could pay their taxes. And mind you, the tomorrow they're referring to would be tax day. They wanted me to give them part of my student loan refund, which I'm saving for next year's apartment and living expenses. I didn't say no immediately. I told them I needed to shower, and then I called my brother of 2 years for advice. He told me to ask reasonable questions, how they would pay me back, and why they couldn't ask someone else, etc. So I called my parents back and I asked them, can I ask a few questions? When I said this, my mom let out a sigh but said yes. When I asked about repayment, as I need the full amount back before I move in 4 months, they literally exploded on me. They accused me of not trusting them and made me feel guilty, even though I just wanted to protect myself. They eventually told me that they could pay half next week, then a few hundred for 6 months. But that still wouldn't give me the money back in time. I said I wanted to help, but I couldn't risk not having money for housing. Then my dad brought up how I didn't pay for car insurance in high school. I reminded him that I made a $150 paycheck while they expected me to pay $400 a month, which I clearly could not afford. They eventually agreed I just pay for gas, and I said it wasn't fair to use that against me now. Well, that's when my dad snapped at me, he swore at me repeatedly, and then my mom hung up on me. This happened happened 15 minutes ago, and honestly, I'm still shaken up. I know I'm not talking to them again until I get an apology, but at this point, I really need some advice because I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, the way they're acting is so immature, like seriously. There's no reason to freak out and swear at you, especially when you did nothing wrong. You literally are just trying to find answers to whether or not they're gonna pay you back, which by the way, I guarantee you they will never pay you back. They're gonna sit on this and be like, oh, you'll just give us the money, right? And then they'll get the money and be like, oh, what money? We don't owe you anything. So no, I don't think you're overreacting because truly, I don't think you would ever get this money back, even if you hounded them for the rest of your life. An entitled Karen blatantly tries to cut in line while we're waiting in line at an amusement park to go on a ride. But instead of letting this go, I decide to get petty by humiliating this woman in a way that she will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so here we are waiting on this really long line for an amusement park ride when suddenly this woman sneakily cuts in line. Now first, I thought that she was with her family and she was just gone briefly to fetch some water or something like that while the rest of her party was in line, but it also just didn't look like it. She was seemingly glued to her phone and she was pushing others every now and then just to get in front of a few kids at a time. And yeah, there were a lot of kids in the line. On top of that, she didn't look like she was looking for someone who might be in line. While she was trying to pass me, I told her, "Miss, the line starts over there." Well, she pretended not to hear me and just kept moving and cut in front of me. And then I tapped her on the shoulder and I said the same thing again quietly. Well, she just stared at me and stood there. She then stopped trying to get to the front, but also did nothing to move to the back. So I tapped her on the shoulder once again and I said the exact same thing, this time loud enough for others to hear. She then huffed and puffed and started moving back, and while she was at it, she accidentally elbowed me. Now, I am a taller woman, so her elbow hit my hip, which by the way, it did hurt, which in turn just got me angry at the audacity of this lady. So I stared at her, expecting an apology, but she said nothing for a good 10 seconds while I just kept staring at her, and then she finally said in a barely audible whisper, "I'm sorry." After that, she kept standing directly behind me. But it's like, no, that's not where you're supposed to stand. She is supposed to stand all the way in the back behind the group of kids behind me. There are about 30 kids there who I wouldn't expect to stand up for themselves at all. So this is when I decided to get loud as I stare at her and I tell her, "Go to the back behind the kids." Well, as you can imagine, she hated that, but at this point, I was loud enough to be socially intimidating and probably also physically intimidating as she is half my size. So she moved behind the kids. I got on the ride with most of the kids while she was waiting in the back with a few of the remaining kids and whoever queued up behind her. And now my hip hurts just a little bit whenever I touch it. Not a lot, but a bruise easily, and I'm just mad at the persistent awful attitude at this point. The ride ends where it starts, and when we are done, the rest of them are getting on. Now, where the upcoming riders are expected to store their possessions is also the side that we ourselves stored our possessions. So she comes over to our side to put her things exactly where we are to pick up our things. It is crowded and unorderly due to the excitement and general chaotic nature of the kids. And you know what? That's where the pettiness got the best of me, and I took advantage of the crowd. I then take a step and I trip her inconspicuously. She then tripped and hit her face on the open lid of the metal lockers and bounced off that to fall on the ground. And in the process, a few kids stepped on her hands. But you know what? I walked out beside her while she was down, and honestly, that was incredibly fun. Okay, I love this story so much because you know what? That lady started it. You know for a fact she elbowed you in the hip on purpose, and you know she did that because you called her out. First of all, who does that? Seriously, who's gonna walk up to the front of a line and be like, "Oh, it's me, I'm going next," instead of, oh, I don't know, getting in the back of the line and being a normal human being? Like seriously, you've got to have a lot of guts to pull that off and feel okay about that. Especially when there's a crowd of people. Like seriously, get a grip. It's incredibly unfair to all the children in line who are going on this ride as well. The least you can do is stand behind them in line with everyone else. But no, this lady had to swim to the front until you said something. And trust me, if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing. Most rides at some kind of park nowadays are like an hour plus long, if not longer than that. So it's like, no, I'm not gonna wait in this line forever just for you to cut in front of me. Go to the back like a normal human being and wait your turn. So truly, good for you for getting back at this lady, because I'm sure that hurt, but also it was probably horribly embarrassing, which in my opinion is the thing that she absolutely deserved the most. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworkers bully me in ways that I honestly never expected, as I truly feel alone in this job, leaving me wondering what I should do next. Here's what happened. Okay, so all day long, service has been flowing well, but every time the manager leaves and lets me lead the front of house, the servers try to create an issue out of thin air just to prove that I shouldn't be in charge. If I'm running a 20-person wait list and every table is sat properly, including reservations of 10 plus people with sections semi-evenly spread out, they still routinely yell and humiliate me in front of customers, and they nitpick random things. I'm talking the stupidest things like, oh, the reservation was set too early, when it's what, 6 o'clock at night, and a group of 10s come in at 7. So I'm in the middle of a busy night, and as I'm dealing with a customer, one of the horse-faced bullies shouts out and says, "Table needs a menu." Now this is a table that sat themselves while I was doing takeout. But as I go up to the table, I realize that it's two guys who work here. I then go up to her and I try to explain they work here, even with some kind of humor about it, where I was like, oh, they actually work here and they just sat themselves. But she still seems snappy about it by saying stuff like, "So what? Why should I have to give them menus? That is your job." At this point, I get annoyed because they literally work here. I point to the menus in every section so servers can always replenish menus when it's busy and if tables need extra, which she absolutely knows about. I then said that there's plenty of menus everywhere and you can talk to me normally and you don't have to yell. Then she escalates things by saying, "Oh yeah, well where's the menu, huh? Where is the menu?" And she's saying this in a way that's taunting me, like I'm some dumb servant that answers to her. And to be completely honest, I went off. I called her crazy. I said she can talk to me normally, and I told her I don't know what kind of mental issues you have, but you need to stay away from me. Now the whole kitchen heard me say that she has mental issues, and other customers and chefs heard me call her crazy and to stay away from me. Then exactly how she body checks me, I body checked her. She then let out a gasp, but it's like, why did you hit me when it was a shoulder check? As if I haven't been a punching bag for menus, pens, shoulder checks, and checkbooks my entire time working here. All the servers were giddy that I finally cracked, and their ringleader testified that I hit her. She kept muttering, "I'm involving the boss now that I have proof." But I would just be like, oh, I'm shaking in my boots. Long story short, the servers all have a weird clique, despite all of them being 30 married mothers, and they've all been having a ball bullying me since I was hired, barking orders at me, body checking me, coming up physically close to me, and I'm talking in ways right up behind me and muttering "move" in my ear, and overall being nasty, comparable only to middle school girls. One morning I came into work, and they decided it was servers slammed their salads against the host day. And mind you, this is 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not new nor am I bad. I've been doing this for like 5 months now. My rotations are even, but they fly off the handle and run to the manager over little things like this since I've started. That's weekends, holidays, nights where I've made things flow well, and managed waitlist, reservations, and lines. I have more than proven myself, and yet it's like I still have to prove myself. Or there is still little tests and nitpicks, and honestly, I'm over it. I have ignored, smiled, or otherwise kept the manager out of it, but at this point, I really am over it. The manager texted me to not come, and my schedule is being changed. He knows they unreasonably bark at me and are weirdly uncooperative, but now he knows the full extent. I kept my mouth shut because I know it's easier to replace one host instead of 7 servers, but honestly, I don't regret it. I will not be talked to like some kind of servant, or be talked down to or mistreated by anyone, regardless of anything I do. And I'm glad I left with my self-respect. I'm an educated, intelligent, hard-working woman, and I will never be talked to like a servant ever again. Okay, dude, I really want to start off by saying I hope you quit that job and found something else. These people are morons. There is no reason for you to be talked to like that. The fact that anybody is body checking you like that first and foremost is completely unacceptable. No one should be physically hitting you in any workplace. That's not okay. It doesn't matter what the context is. You don't do that, and that's not allowed. And on that note, I think you acted in self-defense. These people seriously think they can knock you around like that? Like, no, you have a right to physical safety. Also, where is the owner and the manager in all of this? You mean to tell me this has been going on for 5 months and they're not even seeing any of that? They really don't see how toxic these other servers are acting towards the original poster? Like, that's insane in my opinion. That's the mark of someone who's not paying attention, or it's a leader who literally just doesn't care. They don't care that something's going wrong and it's all just completely overlooked. And I do have to disagree with one thing the original poster said. You do not have to keep your mouth shut just to keep the group happy. I would rather see all 7 of those people replaced, and yes, it absolutely is possible, than you having to deal with their garbage on a daily basis. Because that sounds like the real nightmare. Seriously, they could replace you tomorrow, and then guess what? The same issues will happen with a new host. So seriously, I think the fact that you said something is honestly the best thing you could have done. And sure, you could have done it a few months sooner, but like, it's neither here nor there. But overall, I really hope you find a better job than this, because these people seriously sound like the absolute worst. My boyfriend hides his massive income from his family, and it's hurting their view of me. And now I'm trying to convince my boyfriend to explain how he's so rich to them, because right now I'm honestly feeling so hurt and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend made a lot of money on meme stocks during the pandemic, and as a result has the financial freedom to do things he is passionate about rather than things he has to do. He is finishing up a theology PhD and having the time of his life. We've traveled together to places all over Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. He also coaches high school basketball basketball during the season, which he loves. His parents think he is wasting his time not going to law or medical school. He is going to a very big-name university on the East Coast, so they give him a pass on that. But they think he coaches basketball because of me, as I played in college, but he has been a fan since he was a kid, and they know that. They see my Instagram of our travel pictures and some of the gifts he's gotten me, and they think I'm bleeding a grad student on a PhD stipend dry, when in reality his dividends alone are 6 figures. His sisters send him care packages with food because they think he will starve to death spending all of his money on me. I've asked him to tell his family that it's not true and that he is well enough off, but he says that it will just cause more problems because his extended family has fought over money before. I really want a good relationship with his family because I see us going the distance, but he says that they will love me if he loves me, and I'm not seeing it yet. How do I get him to see that I actually care about what they think of me and that they see me as a bad influence and a gold digger of a PhD student? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. If you say anything about his income to the family, you are absolutely gonna be the problem in this scenario because your boyfriend is 100% correct. Sharing that kind of income with anybody is a bad idea. Like seriously, that is the best decision in this situation. He is under no obligation to share anything with anybody. He lives a private life doing whatever he likes, and the only way he can maintain that privacy is literally by keeping a lid on the fact that he is loaded. I mean, this guy's dividend checks are like, what, 6 figures alone? That is some serious money. And despite the fact that you're traveling the world and you guys are happy together, for some reason, and I cannot understand why, you care what other people think. And it makes me wonder, like, seriously, what is the problem here? You mean to tell me you guys have a good relationship, you want to stick it out and see it through to the end, and he's loaded? Like, what are you talking about? Oh, and the only stipulation is that you keep his finances private, which is something I think anybody would want to do in their, like, personal situation. Like, my God, this is such an easy home run. Literally, all you have to do is just keep his finances private, and you are going to be set for life. Because let's say that he does say, oh yeah, guys, I'm loaded. Based on the fact that his family has fought over money before, you better believe your entire life will become so much different. And if you think they didn't like you before, trust me, they're gonna hate you even more now. Every accusation you think they're throwing your way, which by the way, it doesn't sound like any of that's credible, it's all just assumptions and no one's actually said that to you, all of that is gonna be legitimate in their eyes, and it's literally only gonna cause you more problems. Like, I understand that you feel insecure about his family, but guess what? Time will fix that. If you just stick it out and say nothing, all of this will blow over eventually. By saying something to the family or making him say something, you're only making things more complicated. You're not gonna get that level of acceptance by doing this. This is not the answer. So yeah, telling the family about this would be a huge mistake, and I hope you're not dumb enough to say anything on your end, because this absolutely is completely private and no one should ever have to know about this. My idiotic boss decided, as I was quitting his job, decided to mess with my tax information, forcing me to get revenge in a way he truly was never expecting. Here's what happened. A few years back, I worked for a sales company that had an extremely tight-fisted owner, and after we had a disagreement over poor sales, he withheld my wages. So I organized another job and then I quit. Previously, I had found out that if you left him because of disagreement, he would withhold your tax certificate until it was past the last day of the year to lodge your tax return, and then the certificate showed your net wages as your gross wages with your tax unpaid. He also never gave pay slips, so you had no direct evidence. And how in the world people let him get away with that honestly beats me. The end of the financial year comes around and I wasn't worried. 1 week before the last day to lodge returns, I sent in a return where I had calculated the max tax withholdings as part of my wages. With this, I provided copies of my bank statements for the year as proof of payments and a letter claiming that my ex-boss had refused to provide a tax certificate. I knew he had a bad history with the tax office, but I didn't know that he had a red-flagged account. I mailed my return on Tuesday afternoon, and on Thursday I received a fully paid tax receipt and a refund check for the excess tax that I had theoretically paid, meaning that this was a very, very fast turnaround. Well, a team of inspectors and auditors raided his business that same Thursday. His business closed for a couple of months and then reopened at a smaller location with only family as staff. And before this, he had turned over millions annually. But in my opinion, this guy messed around and he found out. And trust me, I feel really good about putting him in his place. Okay, any employer that messes with somebody's taxes, in my opinion, is a complete idiot. That is asking to have problems. Like, seriously, that is messed up. So good for you for putting this guy in his place, because truly, he absolutely deserved it. I said no to my husband just one time, and now I'm blocked on literally everything, as he is no longer talking to me and giving me the silent treatment, all because I said no to making him a bowl of ice cream. And now I'm left scratching my head wondering what I should do next. Here's what happened. Okay, so after a long day where I cooked dinner, baked cookies, and literally did everything, I finally went to lay down and relax. A little later, I came back into the kitchen and my husband asked if I would mind making him a bowl of ice cream. I said no, I'm doing something else right now, and he immediately gets irritated and says, fine, whatever, go do whatever else you have going on. Now I could tell it bothered him, so I said, I'll make it, it's fine, trying to smooth things over. Then he says, if you make it, I'm not eating it. At that point, he puts on his headphones and starts ignoring me. I then try to get his attention, but he still just keeps ignoring me. Eventually, he tells me to leave and go do whatever I want. So I go to the room and then I come back out and I say, I'm free now. And he responds by saying he doesn't want to do anything with me and then just tells me to leave. I say he's being mean and he denies it and starts ignoring me again. Then he gets up and abruptly goes to the bathroom. I then end up crying a bit in the room because I've been on the go all day, doing everything. And the one time I say no, this is how he acts. This is a manipulative tactic that he uses all the time. I messaged him and he ignored me. I called him and he ignored that too. I could literally hear the phone ringing and him not answering. Then he blocks me on WhatsApp. I checked his profile and it's just blank now, so I know I'm blocked. So seriously, how do you approach a situation where your partner repeatedly responds with silence, anger, or blocking when you try to set a small boundary? What should I do? Okay, honestly, your husband sounds incredibly immature, and you are 100% right. This guy is being super manipulative for like no reason. He's treating you like garbage, he's giving you the silent treatment, which in my opinion is so frustrating, and he's acting like a spoiled brat. And I don't care who this is, like you really do not deserve that kind of treatment. So yeah, your husband is 100% at fault, and if anyone needs to change in this situation, it's him. Because what you said is not that big of a deal, and it did not warrant this level of overreaction. Am I the jerk for borrowing from my brother's inheritance just so I could start up my own business, even though that money was supposed to be used for his care? Because right now I'm honestly feeling really guilty, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents passed away a few years back, leaving money split between me and my brother, who we will call Mark. Mark has significant physical disabilities and needs ongoing care, special equipment, the works. It wasn't written down maybe, but everyone knew that his share was for his long-term care, and my share was just mine. Well, I had this business idea I was passionate about. It was a solid plan, it looked really good on paper, but starting costs were steep. My share wasn't quite enough to launch it properly, and I needed more capital. So I dipped into Mark's fund. Not all of it, not even half. I told myself it was an investment, a loan. If the business took off, I'd pay it back with interest. Mark's future would be more than secure. That was the plan. I mentioned something vague to my aunt, who helps Mark's day-to-day activities, about moving funds for an investment that would benefit Mark long-term. And maybe I wasn't totally clear about the source. Things were hazy, it was stressful. She didn't really push back then and just seemed distracted. Well, the business hasn't worked out like I thought. Supplier problems, markets changed, and it's just some bad luck. It's not totally failed, but it's struggling and it's losing money. And now Mark urgently needs a new piece of equipment. And we're talking life-changing, important kind of urgent. And the money I borrowed, well, it's just stuck, tied up in the business. I can't just pull it out without destroying the whole thing, which seems pointless now. My aunt found out exactly how much was gone and where it went, and she absolutely lost it, screaming that I stole from my disabled brother and put his future at risk. And Mark now knows that too. He doesn't get the business stuff, but he knows the money for his new chair isn't there. And now he just looks crushed. It feels awful, it really does. He just kept stirring his coffee while my aunt yelled. He wouldn't even look at me. And now the family is furious, talking about lawyers to try and get assets from the business. Now my defense, which no one is hearing, is that my intention was good. I wasn't trying to screw him over. I was trying to build something for the both of us. It was a calculated risk, and they just don't always pay off right away. If it had worked, I'd be praised right now. It just feels so unfair. Liquidating now destroys everything, including the chance to ever pay it back. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh my god, this is probably the most selfish thing I've ever heard. Seriously, out of anything I've ever read on this channel, this might take the cake. You mean to tell me that you stole money, and yes, you stole money from your disabled brother so that you could start a failing business, and now that your business is failing, and he needs that money that you stole from him for like something that will save his life, you're seriously gonna come up with excuses and be like, but I meant well with this. My intentions were good. It's like, my man, are you kidding me right now? This is insane behavior. You stole money from your brother, you didn't loan it from him, you gambled it on a business which, by the way, clearly wasn't as solid as you thought it was, and now you're hesitant to give the money back, even though your brother needs it for like life-changing reasons, and you're wondering if you're the jerk? Like, my god, yeah, you're absolutely a jerk. You're a terrible person if you don't make this right. And by the way, the defense that you came up with of like, oh, my intention was good, no, that's not a good defense. That is not a defense at all. If anything, it shows how selfish you truly were. You weren't doing this on behalf of Mark. You say it yourself in the beginning. You started this business because you were passionate about it, but you didn't have enough money. So instead of going through any other avenue you could possibly think of, you say, oh, I'll just take some of my brother's money. You know, my disabled brother who needs the money. I'll pay it back with interest, no problem. Don't worry about that. Like, dude, this is crazy behavior, and I seriously cannot believe that you would do something like that. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, and I can only speak for myself, I would be doing everything to take care of my brother who clearly needs the money. And if that means liquidating a failing business, then guess what? That's what I gotta do. Because what you did to begin all of this is completely unacceptable. And if you actually cared about your brother even in the slightest, then you would do what it takes to make sure that he gets that money. My entitled neighbor freaks out on me after I fuss at his kid for literally breaking into my back garden. Things got so bad that this guy threatened to call the police on me, saying that I mistreated his kid and that he was allowed to break into my backyard. And I'm honestly still pissed off about this situation because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I have 4 chickens who live in a cozy coop at the end of my back garden. One of them, by the name of Whiskey, has survived a fox attack, is 8 years old, and is still laying eggs. And we affectionately refer to her as our guard chicken or the snitch because she will scream for us if any intruders, usually squirrels, enter our yard or any other chickens escape. It was a nice sunny Sunday morning, and I had my friends over for brunch when I heard Whiskey screaming. And when I looked out the window, I see the neighbor's kid crouched down next to my chicken coop. So I shout out to him, hey, what are you doing? The kid then responds back by saying, I'm just getting my ball back. And I look and see that he's holding 2 balls. I then looked at him and I said, well, get out of my garden. The kid responds by saying, that's not very nice. But I say back to him, well, it's not very nice to break into other people's gardens. At this point, he climbs back into his garden through a gap in the fence at the very back of the garden. Meanwhile, I've gone to knock on their front door to speak to their parents, assuming that they must not know what was happening. So I go up to their door and I say, hi, did you know your son was breaking into our garden? Now, right off the rip, the dad immediately started yelling. He says to me, is it okay what you said to my son? But I responded back by saying what? Telling him that he can't break into our property? The entitled dad then said, he's just a kid. It's okay for him to do that. But I told him, no, he's legally not allowed to do that. I don't want some random kid messing around with my chickens. The dad then said, you threatened my kid. You swore him. But I responded by saying, I never threatened him and I just wanted him off my property. But the dad doubled down and said, it's fine for kids to do that. You know what? I don't have to listen to this. He then goes to slam the door in my face, but stops when I step forward onto their doorstep, but not into their house. I then say to him, well, how would you like it if I broke into your garden? The dad then says again, they're just kids and that it's okay. He then said that I was threatening them, and then he said, call the police. At this point, my unfortunate tendency to cry when I'm angry started to get the better of me, so I stepped back and I yelled that I wanted to speak to the police because actually I had done nothing wrong. Then I went back into my house. I did end up calling the non-emergency line, and the operator I spoke to reassured me that they were definitely not entitled to break in whether they were kids or not. And even if I swore at them, I had not broken any laws. So now we have to fix the fence gap and hope that the unhinged adult man living next door, who thinks that it's perfectly fine to wander onto people's yards without permission, doesn't decide to do that again himself. I'm starting to doubt that this was the first time the kids had broken in, as Whiskey had been screaming all day Saturday, but I really couldn't see anything when I checked. So seriously, am I in the wrong in this situation? Because right now I'm still incredibly upset. No, you are definitely not in the wrong. This is so stupid. That dad is like desperate to try and find some kind of justification for his stupid kid breaking into your property. And I think you have it right. I don't think this is the first time they've done that, and I don't think it would be the last unless you did something about it. People like this, specifically the dad, who encouraged this kind of crappy behavior, in my opinion, have no business being parents. He literally tried to be like, oh yeah, this is fine. Kids do this all the time. And it's like, wait a second, I remember being a kid, and if I drop something in my neighbor's backyard, I'm not about to like break into that property to get it. I'm gonna knock on the front door and be like, hey, can I get my ball in your backyard? And then either they get it or I get it. You don't rip a hole in the fence and climb through and get it yourself, because I guarantee you that dumb kid was probably just trying to mess with those chickens. He probably didn't even care about the ball, and most likely used that as an excuse to get what he wanted. So yeah, this whole situation is really dumb, and I'm so sorry you had to go through that, because this entitled jerk is absolutely at fault. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for kicking out a couple who brought their baby and toddler to my wedding, even though I explained to them that my wedding was a child-free event? Because now the entire family's talking about it and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is a couple I'm not very close with, but the wife is a longtime family friend, so I felt that I should invite her. To be perfectly clear, all of my invitations stated that there were to be no children at this wedding, but she and her husband showed up with their infant and toddler, who I think is like maybe 4 years old. At the actual wedding ceremony, ceremony, I let it slide. I was preoccupied for obvious reasons. I also thought that maybe they planned not to attend the reception or to have someone pick the kids up before it started. Anyways, the reception rolls around and lo and behold, they still have their children. I had many other guests and I didn't really feel like dealing with it. So I asked our event planner to go over to them and discuss whether someone was picking up the child, as the reception was not supposed to have children. I mean, everyone was drinking and loud and rowdy, and a crying child and another little one running around was not part of the plan. The infant already had to be taken out once during the wedding ceremony because of fussiness, and the toddler was, from what I could see, already appearing cranky. So my event planner went to talk to the couple, though I could tell they were arguing with my event planner, so I just went over to help them. I think they thought I came to rescue them because they started going on about how rude my event planner was, but I explained that I had actually sent him over to discuss the children. I reiterated that the event was child-free and said that I had stated so clearly on my invitations. The wife gave me a sort of apology and then assured me that they were capable of minding their own children to make sure they didn't get in the way of anything. But I said that wasn't really the point. That's when my now husband comes over and he and the other woman's husband begin going back and forth and things got a little heated. Finally though, I snapped and I said that they just needed to go, which thankfully they did without much more noise. Still, the whole scene was incredibly embarrassing, which is exactly what I wanted to avoid. I really hate that my wedding day had to be somewhat marred by this incident. According to my mother, everyone was talking about it and I guess enjoying a little dramatic entertainment. So was I the jerk by making them leave? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. These people very clearly disrespected your boundaries and brought their kids to your child-free wedding. Like, this is obviously their problem and not something that you should have had to deal with. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. My entitled parents are demanding that I let my cousin move in with me, who is a serious addict, and take care of her at my place, despite the fact that I've worked very hard to find my own place and have my own peace. Because right now they're guilt-tripping me really hard and calling me selfish and claiming that I'm abandoning the family. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, so I moved out of my parents' house a year ago, and I've been working hard to build some peace in my own space. It hasn't been easy, but I'm proud of what I've managed to do for myself. Well, out of nowhere, my parents recently started pushing me to let my cousin move in with me. Now here's the kicker. They know she struggles with serious addictive behavior, and I've already made it clear in the past that I don't feel safe or capable of managing that under my roof. But suddenly they'll say stuff like, "You guys are like sisters. She just needs a place to rest." And it's funny how that sisterly love didn't apply when they were asked to take her in, because you know what? They refused. But somehow I'm expected to let her live in my apartment, pay all the bills, manage her habits, and still maintain my sanity? Well, I said no politely at first. And now I'm being guilt-tripped, called selfish, and being told I'm abandoning the family. I'm honestly so tired of being treated like the backup parent while they get to wash their hands of everything. I worked hard for this piece and I'm not gonna burn it down out of guilt. So has anyone dealt with something like this? How do you hold your ground when it feels like your own family just doesn't respect your no? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, this is probably the best time to stand your ground and not let them walk all over you. Seriously, if you don't stand right now, it will never happen again, because they will know they can always get their way if they just push hard enough. And in my opinion, I would much rather be someone who is firm in my boundaries and people don't like me, instead of a pushover that everyone loves because they can get anything out of them. Because let's be honest, you do not have to watch this lady and make sure she doesn't fall into addictive behavior at all. Why should you be responsible for that? That is so dumb. And them saying "Oh yeah, you guys are like sisters. She just needs a place to rest and reset. Seriously, just let her in." They are literally only trying to guilt trip you, and you do not need that energy in your life. So truly, I don't blame you for saying no, because if I was in your shoes, I literally would have done the exact same thing. An entitled Karen treats any personal shopper that she gets like absolute garbage. So after dealing with this for so long, me and my coworkers decided to get some petty revenge by charging this Karen more in a way that I don't think she's ever caught on to. Here's what happened. I'm a shift supervisor for a retail drugstore chain. Like a lot of retailers, we have our daily couponers, and we have a lot of personal shoppers, like DoorDash or Instacart. And you know what? Some of our couponers are the worst Karens. They've been told repeatedly of the coupon rules, yet they still break them. They hold up the line with their multiple transactions, pretend they can't speak English when we just saw them speaking it a minute ago, especially when we're explaining the rules. We've also seen the same personal shoppers over and over again. We know some of the frequent ones by a first-name basis and have educated them on the layout of the store so they can get their job done faster. Now, just like a lot of stores post-pandemic, most of the store's coupons are online and has a curbside and delivery service. You place your order online, and when it's ready, you come and we deliver it to your car in the parking lot. The company has a contract with one of the personal shopping companies to deliver as well. One of our coupon Karen has decided to use the delivery service at least once a week. She will order 10 to up to a dozen 12-pack of soda, along with several shopping bags of coupon items. Well, one day Karen places an order, and a personal shopper comes to pick it up. And this is one that we know quite well. The personal shopper gives out a loud sigh and says, "Her again." And we ask what's wrong, and the personal shopper explains that the Karen lives on the second floor of an apartment. She is incredibly rude and never tips. Just to deliver all of her stuff, we're talking about 10 trips back and forth from the car to the apartment. She becomes irate when the delivery isn't fast enough. She's been reported for her rudeness, but nothing has ever been done. Given that she has multiple reward card accounts at the store, she will probably start another account should she get banned. Well, fast forward a few weeks and we get the same story from the other two shoppers. They all wish that they could just pass over her delivery. Well, one day Karen puts in a delivery order and my colleague sighs that she's sorry for whichever shopper gets her. But then I see an evil grin coming across my colleague's face. I live in a state where businesses are required to charge for plastic bags, and it is only 10 cents a bag. Some people cringe about this, but others just don't really care. We try to fill the bags as full as possible without being too heavy. Well, my colleague grabs 2 additional bags. She grabs one item from each bag and places it in one of the empty ones. And she does it again with the second bag. All the bags look reasonably filled, but with the 2 extras, that's an extra 20-cent charge. We inform the personal shoppers of our deed, and most give out a small giggle. Well, since then, whenever Karen orders, we try to put Karen's items in as many bags as possible, while still looking reasonable. We've been doing this for about 3 months, and we don't think that Karen has noticed the extra charges. And sure, it is petty, but honestly, it leads to the moral of the story. Be nice and considerate to your personal shoppers and retail staff, or we will find a way to make you pay for your rudeness. I really like this because, yeah, it is super petty, but you know what? This Karen deserves a lot worse than she's actually getting. Like, in my opinion, the way you treat someone in customer service, whether that's a server or someone like checking you out at a grocery store, like that really determines who you really are on the inside. If you treat them as if they're below you and treat them with like disrespect, then you, in my opinion, are a terrible person. Because seriously, there's no reason to act like that, especially if people are doing their job and they're doing it right. It would be different if the other person was like super rude and like not doing what they need to do, but I would seriously argue that people don't go into customer service to be jerks about it. They're literally just trying to like make ends meet and make rent. And this just so happens to be like the most easily accessible type of job in the area, which honestly usually is the case. So truly, to the original poster and everybody involved in this, good for you in getting this petty revenge, because this Karen deserves a lot worse than what you're giving her. Today, I messed up by trying to clear ice on the road and accidentally ending up on my neighborhood Facebook group, and I am honestly so done with these people. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, there is a huge block of ice blocking the drain that drains water from the road. Because of this, water has been gathering in a big puddle on the road and creating a growing pothole visible under the water. On the colder days, it freezes and makes the road slippery, and people have been calling the city about this, but clearly nothing gets done. Not to mention, the city workers don't operate in this area. Anyways, after slipping on this ice for what seems like the 100th time during my daily commute, I decided to take matters into my own hands. When I made it home, I grabbed a snow shovel and I started breaking the ice to free the drain. The ice was really stubborn, and I couldn't see the drain, but I knew it was there. After a few hours, I decided to call it a day. The next day, I used a saw to saw through the ice, but still it didn't budge. Then I used a pickaxe on the ice, and it worked better than a shovel, but still, I couldn't completely break through the meter of ice. I decided to put more road salt on it in a last attempt, and after that, I went back inside. Well, when I came back and I checked my Facebook, there was a post on the community group that said, "Whoever is the parent of that kid breaking the ice, please get your kid. They are blocking the road." Now, where I live, nobody wants to splash a kid with road water because it is like the bare minimum of what you can get sued for. So nobody wanted to drive by too fast. They all drove by slowly to avoid splashing what they thought was somebody's kid. So I told the poster that yeah, that was my kid, and then I asked them to take the picture down. And while they ended up taking the picture down, I not only realized how short I actually was, but also how petty and weird people on Facebook can truly be. Oh man, that's so stupid. Like, come on. Here you are trying to solve a very obvious problem, you know, the one that the city literally won't come out there to work on, and people have the audacity to be like, "Oh my god, they're blocking the way. They're trying to remove that dangerous thing and it's blocking my way of getting home." It's like, dude, do you have nothing better to do with your life than to take pictures of people and post them on Facebook? Like, seriously, get a life. That's so weird. So yeah, you definitely did the right thing, and honestly, those people on Facebook are idiots. And hopefully this doesn't bother you too much, because honestly, this is incredibly dumb. Am I the jerk for how I reacted to my mother-in-law's wedding gift after she gave me something so offensive it honestly just blows my mind? Because right now there's a giant rift in the family, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my fiance Daniel for 9 years. We're getting married this December, and we've been planning a wedding that combines both of our cultures. Daniel and his family are Korean American, and my family and I are Indian. Daniel's dad introduced us, and he was always really warm and kind. His mom, who we will call Grace, wasn't hostile or anything like that, but she was definitely distant in the beginning. Over time, things got better, or so I thought. When we got engaged, I include Grace in the planning, since it is traditional in his family for both mothers to be involved. I genuinely wanted her to feel included and respected, but now I'm really regretting that decision because she's made this whole process emotionally exhausting. There have been these small comments throughout the planning that I just can't shake. When I told her I'd be wearing my natural curls, she said straight hair would be more polished and traditional, but if I wanted to go with a wild, untamed look, then I was very brave. When we brought her a sample of our wedding cake, which was a sponge cake with pistachio cream filling, she called it very exotic and told us not to worry if it went untouched by her side because Indian flavors can be a bit intense. When I showed her what my family would be wearing, which was a traditional Indian clothing with jewelry, she said since their side of the family is larger, mine might stick out more, and that our side's attire might be a little distracting. Her comments are never outright rude, but these little remarks make me feel like my culture is constantly being framed as too much or too different. Daniel says she probably doesn't mean anything by it and just wants the wedding to be perfect. My mom has even offered to step in, but I've asked her not to. I've been trying hard to keep things peaceful, and then this happened. During a recent call, I reminded Grace of our wedding colors, which were purple, gold, and green. She then complimented the scheme and said I would look great in gold. I gently corrected her and I said my lehenga would actually be lavender purple. She then went quiet and changed the subject, and I honestly thought nothing of it. 2 days later, she came to our apartment while Daniel was at work, bringing what she was calling a pre-wedding gift. Now, I was touched until I opened the box and saw it was a bottle of skin whitening cream. I tried to remain calm and I asked her why she thought this was appropriate. She told me lavender is a delicate color and doesn't always look good on darker skin tones, so she thought that I could use this to lighten up a bit so that the lehenga would suit me better. And when she said this, I absolutely lost it. I told her how offensive and inappropriate that was, and that I wasn't going to lighten my skin for anyone. She looked at me stunned and said I was being too sensitive and that she was only trying to help. Then she added that if I really respected Korean culture, I would have chosen a white dress, like traditional Korean brides do. That the way we're planning the wedding makes her feel like we don't actually care about her culture. And she said this all before I told her to leave. And now she's crying to Daniel and his dad, saying I attacked her and twisted her intentions. Daniel says he understands why I'm upset, but he also thinks I should have stayed calm and that maybe it was just a cultural misunderstanding. And he's now asking me to smooth things over. But you know what? I'm exhausted, and I'm not trying to ruin my relationship with Grace or hurt Daniel's relationship with his family. But I'm honestly so very hurt over this, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, this really pisses me off as well because this was not some kind of like cultural misunderstanding. Daniel's mom was being straight up racist, and there's no other way to put it. She literally gave her like skin whitening cream just to make her feel better about the way she looked. Not to mention all the dog whistle remarks she's made about your culture. Like seriously, this is so messed up. I don't care what anybody says here. And in my opinion, I can't believe Daniel's not stepping in and telling his mom to get lost. Why on earth is he not taking his future wife's side on this? These microaggressions are absolutely unacceptable. And of course, they're so subtle that she can just sit there and be like, oh, I'm the victim. I'm being attacked and my intentions are being twisted around. It's like, no, dude, that's definitely not what's happening. You're just straight up racist and disrespectful. And in my opinion, there's no way she should be welcome in the wedding at all. So just to answer your question, no, you're not in the wrong for freaking out because what your mother-in-law did to you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. An entitled jerk decides to be a loud, massive loser, all in a local library where people are trying to study. So my brother exposes him on Facebook, literally putting him in his place in a way he will never forget. Here's what happened. So this past winter, my brother was at the local library for about 6 weeks, studying for an important exam as a ship's officer. He goes there to rid himself of distractions, namely video games, and he says that it helps him keep him focused. He sits in the back of the library, which overlooks a small park with a small river, and it honestly is a beautiful view. There's a rotating group of nerdy guys who hang out all day in this section, and my brother has made casual friends with them. Well, there's a local contractor who comes by 1 to 2 times daily and does business over the phone in this area. I guess he likes the view as well, but the trouble is that he does not do it quietly. My brother's trying to study, but he keeps getting interrupted by this guy by answering his phone with his construction company name and then addressing customers that he's probably working with. My brother asked him to keep his voice down, which worked the first few times, until this guy, who we will call Roman, got tired of this kid bothering him. My brother then asked for the front desk to handle it, but they got tired of having to constantly do this, and Roman would just quiet down until the librarian would leave. The nerdy guys told my brother that he had been doing it forever, and they were just kind of used to it. Finally, my brother spent a week humbly and politely asking this guy to please lower his voice or take his calls out in the lobby. He made it a point to be very polite and stressed that he was trying to study. Roman seemed to sense his weakness and doubled down on his attitude. He replies by saying, "Kid, go back to your books. I told you before, I ain't got time for you." My brother had set up his laptop to record all of this, and after a week or so of this, he put together a 3 to 4 minute video of their exchanges, and he actually posted it on 6 different Facebook groups about our town, and he made sure to make it public so it could be shared. And you know what? It was a hit. There was a couple hundred comments and dozens of shares. His poor wife was tagged in several of the posts, and several people posted it to his Facebook company page. All those posts were quickly deleted, but best of all, it was discovered that he had been booted from the local Dunkin' Donuts for this same kind of behavior. I mean, one of the Facebook groups by the name of Jerks in Our Town made him their profile picture. And by the way, we're in a small city that has no shortage of Karens, so this dude got it with both barrels. My brother told the nerd group what he'd done and to have their phones ready for when he returned. They all loved the video, and he was like a rock star for a couple of days. About 4 days later, Roman finally came back to the library, and my brother held up his phone, as did about 3 other people. Roman was hot, but checked himself when he saw he was being filmed by several people. And you know what? He was not apologetic. He just kept repeating that my brother had affected his business and that he was just trying to conduct his business and needed a place to do that. My brother then said, "I think you owe all of us an apology." Roman then looked around at the group and said, "Okay, I'm sorry." My brother said thank you, and then Roman walked away. But after about 20 or 30 feet, Roman turned around, saw my brother watching him but his phone on the table, and shot him the middle finger. But you know what? He never came back to that library, and my brother ended up passing all of his exams. Wow, I love this because seriously, a library is like the last safe haven for any kind of concentration. If you're trying to get something done, usually the library's a good spot to go, just so you can have some kind of peace and quiet. So good for your brother for putting this guy in his place, because his attitude was incredibly disrespectful. My friend's psycho mom tried to get my daughter deported so that I would date her son, basically saying that if my daughter was out of the way, then I would have a fair shot at dating her son and changing his life. Things got so bad that they actually sent ICE agents to my house to literally investigate my 3-year-old daughter. And I'm honestly still so crazy upset about this that at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old female, and I'm a single mom to a mixed-race 3-year-old daughter. For reference, I'm white, but my daughter's father is a New Zealand Maori who I met and briefly dated while he did his training and worked here in the States. He and I are not together anymore, and he's not involved in our daughter's life as he moved back to New Zealand, but I do have some contact with his parents as my daughter is their only grandchild. And on top of that, I do feel it's good for my daughter to know her Maori culture and paternal grandparents as well. Anyways, I come from a well-off upper middle class family, and my friend, who we will call Kate, is from a low-income working class family from West Virginia. We met in college, we are close, and Kate is a genuinely nice and kind person, but is also low contact with her toxic family, which consists of her stepmom, who we will call Pam, her stepbrother, who we will call Kyle, and the dad. Now, Pam is on disability, Kate's dad is a truck driver, and according to Kate, her stepbrother Kyle apparently makes women feel uncomfortable. He can't hold a job, doesn't really interact with others outside the internet, has this weird fantasy about having a trad wife, and has very racist and misogynistic views as well. Last year, me and my other friend, who we will call Rachel, along with some of our friends, hosted an engagement party for Kate and her boyfriend, who we will call Jack, at my family's vacation home in Catskills. It was supposed to just be us, our other friends, and some of our colleagues from the museum, but apparently when Kate mentioned it to her dad, Kate's stepmom Pam demanded that we let them attend, and after some back and forth, we decided to just let them come, but I opted to not formally send them an invite, and instead I just told Kate that they can come if they want. During the party, Pam and Kyle seemed rather out of place, as they couldn't really hold a conversation with anyone. When anyone tried to talk about her stepdaughter Kate and her fiance Jack, you know, the ones who this party was to celebrate, Pam would somehow try to make it about her son Kyle. In fact, Pam kept trying to talk up her son Kyle to me, Rachel, and some of the other girls in the party, and they complained about us having Taylor Swift playing in the background, with Kyle calling it feminist trash. Later, when I was chatting with our former college professor, Kyle came up to me, he tried chatting with me, asking me questions and flirting with me, and I tried being polite, answering his questions with one-word or one-sentence answers, but when he asked me out on a date, I told him I couldn't as I do have my job and my daughter to look after. Well, long story short, I started shouting at him, telling them, namely Kyle and his mom, to leave, warning that I'd call the sheriff's office if they didn't, after Kyle said something along the lines of, well, I would be perfect for him, especially if I didn't have my half-breed daughter. And by the way, those are his words and not mine, while also saying that if I wanted to be with him, I'd have to put my daughter up for adoption or something. Pam then joined in, saying something along the lines of, "How dare you talk to my son like that?" demanding that I give her son a chance. And they eventually left after our friends and guests started chewing them out, calling them trash, and Rachel did call for law enforcement. Now, Kate did profusely apologize for her stepmom and stepbrother's behavior, but I assured her that I don't blame her, as she did warn me about them, but I just didn't think that it would be this horrible. Over the next year or so, Pam did message me on Facebook a few times, saying things like, "How dare you talk to my son like that? You people think you're too good for us," complaining that we've previously never invited her or her son to anything, and that I should apologize to and go on a date with her son. And mind you, I'm friends with Kate and not her stepmom and stepbrother. Well, I reminded her that her son is a coddled high school dropout who can't hold a job. Pam herself is unemployed, her son is a racist and misogynistic bum, and her family, except for Kate, is trash. While I actually do have a well-paying job, I've got a master's degree, I do not share the same toxic views of her or her son, and that I'm more than capable of supporting myself, something neither her nor her son could do. I then blocked Pam, and for some reason it slipped my mind to also block Kyle. And keep this in mind because this will be important later on. I did tell Kate and the others in the friend group about this, and Kate apologized for her stepmother again and revealed that her stepmom and Kyle have been low-key stalking me and Rachel, looking at our posts on Instagram and TikTok, and watching videos we post of us going on family boat trips, eating out at restaurants, and Pam apparently being envious of my family's 2023 Christmas dinner party. Now, because of this, Pam has been telling Kate how she believes that she deserves the life me and Rachel live, hence why Pam has been trying to pressure Kate to hook Kyle up with either me or Rachel, to which Kate has repeatedly refused to do so. The engagement party we held for Kate was back in July of 2024, and between then and a few days ago, I haven't heard from them. However, last weekend I was with my daughter at my family's house in the Upper East Side when ICE agents showed up at my door, because apparently someone reported my daughter as being an illegal immigrant. Firstly, I called my grandpa's law firm, and they sent a couple of lawyers to our family home, and I explained to the agents that my daughter's dad may be a foreign national, but me, being an American, am her biological mother, and my daughter was born in Boston, so she's a United States citizen. Now, I'm not going to get into how the interaction with ICE went, as it was stressful and my grandpa's lawyers mostly handled it, but long story short, it turns out that Kate's stepmother and stepbrother reported my daughter to ICE to try and get my daughter deported, in hopes that if my daughter was gone, I would somehow be willing to go out with Kyle. According to Kate, she found out that her stepmom just created another account, and given the fact that I forgot to block Kyle as well, he was able to see me post online. They knew my daughter was a US citizen as she was born here. Kate herself told them that in the past, but according to Kate, they think it's disgusting for me to have a mixed race child, and they wanted to hook up with Kyle so they can be included in my family's social events, trips on my dad's yacht, and live the life that they think they deserve. That being said, they also think that if they somehow got my daughter out of the way, I could start fresh with Kyle. Kate also mentioned that going forward, she will be going no contact with her stepmom and stepbrother, as she and Jack did not want her stepmom trying to interfere with or dictate their married life, since they as a couple have had problems with Pam in the past. Also, Kate said she will testify in court against her stepmom and stepbrother if it really does come to that. Because of this, my grandfather, my dad, our family's lawyers, and I agree that it's best we take them to court. Now, for some additional context, yes, unfortunately, Kate did come from a toxic household, as her stepbrother was an entitled golden child who was coddled by his mom. Pam is a controlling and psychologically awful person who feels the need to control everyone, and Kate's dad is barely around, nor does he seem interested in being involved with his family. That being said, Kate's dad has been pretty much absent from most of the awful things that Kate has been dealing with during her teenage years, and when Kate did tell her dad, he would just brush it off, and that is how I understood her family situation to be. That's why Kate, up until this past weekend, was only low contact with her family, but after the incident of Kyle and Pam stalking me and Rachel, Kate and her fiance Jack have decided to finally go no contact with Pam and Kyle, as they really don't want any of their toxicity in their life going forward, and especially don't want Pam around any future kids that Kate and Jack may have. This is legitimately a crazy situation, and I just want to say to the original poster, I am so sorry this happened to you. You are seriously very brave for sharing this, because my god, this paints a picture I've honestly never seen before. Like seriously, can you imagine for a second being so crazy that you think falsely reporting that somebody's daughter is an illegal alien in hopes that they would get deported is somehow gonna win this lady over for your crazy son? Like my god, talk about using the system in the wrong way. These people are out of their minds if they think that's okay, and I'm so sorry that happened to you and your daughter. Like you guys don't deserve that in the slightest. You literally only invited them because they were like, oh, we don't want to be left out, please let us come to your stupid party, and then they pulled this stuff, and it's like, dude, what is happening right now? So seriously, I really hope this gets worked out for you and your family, especially for the sake of your daughter. Like, that really is a crazy situation, and you guys do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my friends to delete their reviews of my cafe as it was glaringly obvious that they used ChatGPT to make the review? Here's what happened. So I opened up a cafe a few months ago. The premise is very small, and my business partner and I live directly above it, so it's closer to a side hustle more than anything, since we only open for the morning rush. Business has been steadily increasing, and we've been getting nothing but good feedback from our customers so far. Last month, I invited my entire friend group to enjoy a beverage and a slice of cake at the cafe for free in exchange for honest feedback in the form of a Google review, since I wanted to try out some new drink ideas and also get a bit more traffic on our Google page. Well, my friends ate, they drank, and then they bounced, and a good time was had by all, with each of them promising to write a review the next day. Every single friend wrote a review, and every single one of them was obviously generated by ChatGPT and written in American English, which is not even the official language here. Some of the reviews even mention services or drink items that we just don't have. So when I saw this, I was really conflicted. While I appreciated them taking a moment of their time to write a review, I feel like not only was it a half-baked gesture, but also I think that since people can tell a fake review from a genuine one, it only affects my cafe's credibility. I mean, would you visit a cafe where the only reviews are all clearly AI generated? I know I wouldn't, which is why I've asked a couple of them to take the reviews down and redo it. I'm not entirely surprised that they were taken aback and not happy with my request. It's not pleasant to be told that your gesture, no matter how small it is meaningless. One of them even said that they don't feel welcome at my business anymore. But I feel like as a business owner, I should be mindful of credibility to the point where I have to risk offending people, and unsurprisingly, my business partner agrees. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Oh man, no, you're definitely not the jerk. I would be super pissed off if my friends didn't leave legitimate reviews. Seriously, you welcomed them into your cafe, you gave them a free meal, and then the least they could do was leave an actual review, but instead they used ChatGPT to do it? Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so disrespectful. To me, it shows that they only showed up for the free meal, but also they don't actually care enough to be like, yeah, let me leave a good review for my friend. It's like, come on, that literally would take 5 seconds. And the fact that they tried to do that through ChatGPT in a different language than the one you live in, it's like, come on, that is even more telling that no, they're not doing this because they care. So no, you're not the jerk for asking that, because literally they're only hurting your cafe. And whether this is a side business or not, it honestly is super disrespectful that they didn't leave a proper review, because that literally is the bare minimum of what you could expect from them. An obnoxious jerk keeps texting me about something that I have nothing to do with, as they were trying to reach out to the person who previously had my phone number. So after dealing with this for so long, I finally hit my breaking point where I told them to get lost or else I would sue them, resulting in them literally never contacting me ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so at the time I was 15 years old and I had a new number. I got this text message from someone who we will call Dan, and they were wondering about a property somewhere the previous owner of the number had, which honestly I assume is what they were looking for. They gave me the address, not all of it though, and I just never looked it up, but I didn't recognize the number at all or the area code. At first I was polite to the person and informed them that who they were looking for no longer had the number, and at first it seemed fine. That is, until I got another text message. It was the same person looking for the previous owner about the same property, and again I was nice, but it kept on happening. At some point I was a bit harsh, and I said that the person died even though I hope they didn't, and I said not to text me, but they did anyways, and I think it happened about 8 or 10 times in total. Now I can't be sure as I lost the phone, but after the last time they did it, I was fed up. My stepmother said something once about how the same person or company can't contact you after a certain amount of times or it's considered harassment, and to get out of that, they'll contact you from different numbers. And I think it was in a day, but I could be wrong. But regardless, I'm sure you can see exactly where this is going. My young brain came up with an absolutely brilliant idea at the time. I went back to the previous conversations and took screenshots of each time they contacted me and my responses. And I pretended to be my father, and I told them something like, stop contacting my underage daughter or I will come after you and sue you for harassment. And I did this with the evidence attached that they had contacted me more than once and that I had asked them to stop, and they continued. I wasn't sure if I really could go after them for harassment or not, but it was the only thing I could think of at the time. Well, to make a long story short, I never got another text message from them ever again. Eventually, I lost the number later, but you know what? Even still, it was great to finally get these people off of my back. Wow, you made a brave decision there. You literally played the gambit by not only being like, oh, I'm this person's dad and I'm gonna gonna sue you, but also being like, the person who had this number is dead. Like, wow, that is a gamble. You really put everything on the line and said, okay, we're doing this, because that is not something I would ever do. I would either block them or find some way to like get away from them and just hope that the messages would stop. But you went to a level that I don't think I would ever go to, and to that end, I congratulate you because clearly it worked. Today, I messed up by leaving my door unlocked for 15 minutes, allowing a man who I've never met before to walk into my house under the assumption that my house was a massage parlor, and I've honestly never been more confused or freaked out in my entire life. Here's what happened. So this wasn't quite today, but on Monday night, my partner and I saw a dog walk past us with no human. We figured that it was a lost dog and decided to search for it. We split up, my partner was on foot, and I took my scooter. We don't find the dog, and then we meet up on the corner. My partner then said that he was going to quickly check the park across from ours just for a second. I went home because I really needed to go to the bathroom, and this was at 11:30 p.m. at night. Now, I left the door unlocked because my partner wasn't gonna be long, and who the heck is coming to my house at 11:30 p.m. at night with all my security cameras and with all the lights on? Then, while I was on the toilet, literally going number 2, I heard someone by the door, and obviously I thought it was my partner. I yelled out and I said, "Hey honey, did you find the dog?" Then I heard the door with no response and assumed that he didn't hear me. I yelled again and I got a deep, low, strange noise. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, and a huge 6'2" man was standing in the doorway of the toilet, literally as I'm going to the bathroom. I'm in absolute shock, and then the guy says to me, "Is this the massage parlor?" At this point, my brain is so confused. So I just tell him no. He then asks me, "Oh, do you offer other services here?" And again, I was so confused. So I look at him again and I say, "No." He then just stands there for another minute, confused himself, and then walks down the stairs and leaves. And I'm honestly still in disbelief that this happened to me, because this truly was one of the craziest situations I've ever had happen in my life. My entitled brother loves scamming members of my family and only becomes a worse person anytime he gets caught. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've recently come to realize that my brother loves to scam the family and does not like it when he gets caught. A petty example would be back in 2020, when restaurants were starting to reopen in the United Kingdom. I was about 26 years old and I was going out, and my brother, who was 28 at the time, asked me to bring back a Five Guys meal costing me about $20. Now, he promised to pay me back, so I obliged, and I gave him the meal once I returned home. He didn't have the money right then, but he promised me that he would pay me back soon. Around 2 days later, around 11 o'clock p.m. in the evening, he approached me in the living room asking for a massage whilst we watched anime, which is something he would request regularly, saying his back was aching badly due to working as a physiotherapist. Now, this time I said no. I said I'm not going to be doing any favors like that for him until he paid me back the money that he owed me. He immediately got defensive and aggressive, shouting stuff like, "You're seriously not going to do it?" Hurling insults, and when I insisted I won't do anything, all the way until he pays me back, he shouted at me and said, "You should have reminded me." And I pointed out, "It shouldn't have to be on me to remind you." He then stormed off immediately, and to this day, he still hasn't paid me back. And in fact, I cut him off the following year. Although the above examples are rather petty, I bring this up because of something my dad told me a couple of weeks ago. It turned out my dad and brother had some deal where my dad would handle his phone bill and my brother would give him the money each month. Apparently, my dad realized he'd forgotten about this for months, and he approached my brother and asked him if he could pay back around $200 that he owed him. Keep in mind, my brother earns over $40,000 a year, and he lives with my parents rent-free, so money is definitely not an issue. Apparently, his response was to throw a fit, shouting at my dad and then sending him $2,000 instead, despite my dad's protests. I told my dad he was using a manipulation tactic by overpaying him in some kind of an attempt to make my dad feel guilty and put him in the wrong when my dad's request was more than reasonable. I also have no doubt that my brother didn't just forget to pay my dad either, and I've got no doubt he was trying to see how long he could do this for. Now, for additional context, I have not spoken to him in 4 years, and I cut him off completely after he screamed at me for never talking to him and then tried to out me as trans. I have since moved out in 2021, and honestly, I am so glad to finally be away from that man. Yeah, that sounds like a really awful situation, and I'm so glad you're away from them as well. Because seriously, your brother is definitely a con artist. You mean to tell me he refused to pay you back, what, the $20 for that meal, and then try to be like, "Well, you should have reminded me." It's like, dude, I really should not have to remind you about this. Like, are you kidding me right now? This should have been a simple situation that you could have easily fixed. All you got to do is pay me back and then everything's fine. So the fact that they freaked out on you and they continue to like basically use these manipulation tactics, not only on you, but also on your family, like that's crazy in my opinion, and I don't blame you for being annoyed. So yeah, this is super weird, and I honestly don't blame you for a second, because your brother sounds like an absolute piece of work. Am I the jerk for saying that my boyfriend's friend can't visit us now that I'm pregnant? Because this guy is constantly making a mess and making my life hard harder, especially considering that I have a child on the way. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend has a friend who is currently pursuing the whole van life thing, where literally they're living out of his van. The past several months, this friend has been coming by our house a couple of days a week. Each time he's here, he stays around 10 to 12 hours to use the shower, use our kitchen and washing machine, and use our Wi-Fi. I've been unhappy with the lack of privacy and the extra work for quite a while, which my boyfriend is well aware of, but has been putting up with because the friend is down on his luck and could use some help. However, now that I'm pregnant, I'm ready for this situation to end. I want to be able to lay on my couch without pants on and not have to get dressed, so to say, whenever they decide to come over. I also hate having to talk about my private medical details with my partner, all while trying to whisper because they're in the next room. I'm also just worn out in general, and the friend is generating so much extra work. He comes into our house after doing construction jobs and tracks in a ton of dust and dirt, and every time he showers, he somehow leaves a thick coating of body hair all over the shower that now I have to clean up before I could shower again. After he uses the washing machine, there are sticks and leaves and sand all over the laundry room. Not only does he hog the kitchen when I want to cook meals sometimes, but he also leaves all of his dirty dishes for me to deal with afterwards. Ideally, I'd have my boyfriend deal with the extra work since he's the one inviting the dude over, but with his busier work schedule, most of the housework falls on me. So to me, it's a no-brainer that the friend finds somewhere else to be for a couple of months to give me some privacy and a break from the added work. However, when I brought this up to my boyfriend and I told him it was time to set a boundary with a friend, he told me it was first of all a very awkward and weird thing to ask of his friend, and secondly, a cruel and insensitive thing for me to request. He's willing to do so for me, but at the same time is making it very clear that he thinks I'm a monster for even asking him to do this. So is it actually unreasonable for me to put a no visitors rule in place for the next few months? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, this is your house and your space. And if someone is literally taking up that space and not being kind to it, then something needs to change. And I honestly can't fathom the fact that your boyfriend's trying to be like, wow, you're being cruel and unusual. This is really insensitive. And yet here you are sitting there like, oh, okay, but guess what? I'm pregnant, idiot. What do you think is gonna happen? This friend literally is not gonna have any space in this house, and the boyfriend's gonna learn that really quickly. They're gonna learn real fast that this child is gonna take precedent in almost every aspect of your life. So he can either deal with this now or deal with it later when it's probably gonna be too late, and feelings get hurt and this guy really gets upset. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for saying that to your boyfriend, and you're definitely not making things awkward or being cruel and insensitive. That, in my opinion, is a really dumb thing of your boyfriend to say, and that is completely out of line. My entitled sister's demon spawn of a child destroys my $2,000 gaming setup all in one night while I was sleeping, and after I discovered the damage, I told her that she can either pay up or I would take her to court. But now she has literally blocked me on everything, saying that she will never pay for any of the damages. And I'm honestly so completely shocked by all of this that at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm a 25-year-old female, and I'm honestly at my breaking point with this one. I need outside perspective because my entire family is acting like I'm a jerk for standing my ground. So for a bit of context, I'm a student software developer and a pretty serious PC gamer in my free time. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment that I've spent years making cozy and functional, and I saved up for a long time to build my dream PC setup. Triple monitors, custom mechanical keyboard, ergonomic chairs, the works. Altogether, my rig is worth a bit over $2,000, and I take care of it as if it's a child. Last weekend, my older sister, who's 30 years old, asked if she could crash at my place for one night because her apartment was being fumigated and her husband was out of town. She has a 3-year-old who we will call Max, who is, let's just say, very spirited. I love him, but he is just a little chaos gremlin. I hesitated, but she swore she would keep an eye on him and that it would just be for one night. They show up Saturday afternoon, and immediately it's clear that she wasn't kidding about Max being a handful. Within 10 minutes of arriving, he had pulled 4 books off of my shelf, thrown my houseplants on the floor, and spilled juice on my area rug. Now, I tried to stay chill. He is only 3 years old, I mean, I get it. But I asked my sister politely to please keep him out of my office where my PC setup is. Well, after I say that, she just rolls her eyes at me and goes, well, he's just exploring. He's curious. This is normal. But thankfully, she closes the office door anyways. Cut to Sunday morning, and I wake up to screaming. Max had apparently woken up before his mom, managed to open the office door, and decided my setup was his new jungle gym. He pulled down one of my monitors, cracking the screen. He stuck crackers into the PC tower's ventilation slots, and no, I'm not kidding. He yanked out my keyboard's keycaps and had colored on my chair with permanent marker. But the cherry on top of all of this is that he poured apple juice into the tower itself, like literally into it. When I tell you I went silent, I mean I went dead silent. My sister sister comes in, sees the damage, and just says, "Oh no," in this incredibly flat tone, like someone knocked over a cup of coffee. I then start freaking out, and she has the audacity to say to me, "Well, you should have baby-proofed the room if it was that important to you." And at this point, I just lost it on her. I told her that for one, she knew he wasn't supposed to be in there, and secondly, this is my space, not a daycare. Also, baby-proofing a $2,000 gaming setup is not a standard requirement for adults living alone. She then told me to calm down, and then she said to me, "He's just a kid and stuff is replaceable." So I told her that she could replace it then. She said she didn't have the money right now, but maybe in a few months she could give me a few hundred. But I told her straight up that wasn't acceptable and that she needed to take full responsibility. She then left in a huff, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone. My mom says I'm being materialistic and should understand that my nephew didn't mean it. My dad said I should have locked the door if it was that important. And my brother actually said, "Why do you need 3 monitors anyways? That's kind of an overkill, don't you think?" I have filed a claim with my insurance, but there is no guarantee it'll be covered since it was technically guest damage. I also told her that if she does not pay up, I will take her to court for what happened. And now I'm getting text messages from my sister demanding an apology for blaming her kid for being curious. But I told her I would drop it if she covered the cost of repairs and replacements, or at least met me halfway. And you know what? After I said that, she just blocked me. So truly, am I overreacting if I take my sister to court over this? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine that happening to my setup. I think I would lose my mind if that happened to me. Seriously, the fact that that kid poured apple juice inside the tower itself, like that's permanent damage. That's the kind of damage that's going to take a while to figure out. The screen and the keyboard and the chair, that in and of itself for me would not be that big of a deal. But the fact that they poured apple juice into the PC tower itself, like dude, there's no way I would ever keep calm about that. And you better believe I would absolutely take her to small claims court because she admits that yes, this was her stupid kid doing that. And the original poster has it right. They should not have to baby-proof their house. Your sister should have taken you seriously and prevented her demon spawn from destroying your setup. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for demanding that she be held responsible because this situation is 100% her fault and she absolutely needs to pay up. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband just quit his job with no notice and no plan, and now I'm kind of panicking because at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my husband for over 20 years. I love him and have never doubted that he's my person. Normally, we function as a couple extremely well. I consider myself to be very lucky in love, but I've been working 2 jobs because it has been my goal to get totally out of debt this year. 100% of my second job income was going towards that debt. I barely have any free time at all, and I can't remember the last time I had a day free to myself. I've been on the grind hard, and our economy is only getting scarier. Well, my husband came home this week, unexpectedly stating that he quit his job. He was miserable and mistreated where he worked. I've been begging him to find something new, but you know what? I kind of wanted him to have a new job lined up first. I'm miserable where I work too, and my company is aggressively downsizing. My husband is well aware that my job security for my primary job is very thin, if not non-existent, and yet he still chose to do this. He didn't give a 2 weeks notice, and he didn't have any kind of plan for what comes next. I wanted him to get out there, yes, but not like this. I feel like I've been betrayed. I feel like I'm seeing my debt-free dreams turn up to ashes before my eyes. I can't even express to him how upset and worried I am without him going into a fit of self-deprecating tears. I haven't really been able to have a productive talk with him either. He just melts down and starts yelling about how he ruined our lives. I love him and I'm heartbroken and I feel like I'm utterly alone in the world now because my partner stabbed me in the back and I didn't agree to be the only provider in the family. So at this point, I'm pretty upset and I'm very scared, and I feel like he thinks that I should be more supportive since I did want him to leave where he was to begin with. What should I do? Oh man, this is a really sketchy situation because my God, your husband literally quit his job overnight. He didn't have anything else lined up. Like, I don't know about you, but I've had crappy jobs, but even in those crappy jobs, I've still tried to have something lined up. It seems like this is one of those like spur of the moment things where he's like, no, I can't take it anymore, and then he just quits on the spot. And that really is not a good idea in my opinion. So truly, I'm so so sorry you're going through this, and hopefully he's able to find something soon, because you do not deserve to be in this situation in the slightest. My coworker kept stealing my lunch, so I decided to get some revenge by taking a crap in my coworker's drawer. And honestly, I don't regret it, and I seriously wish I'd done it sooner. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work in a customer service office, and this is basically cubicles stacked on top of more cubicles. The vibe isn't terrible, but there is this one guy who we will call Steve, who has this incredibly annoying habit of stealing people's food from the communal fridge. It doesn't matter if it's labeled, dated, or surrounded by aggressive post-it notes. If it's in there, he will take it. People have brought it up before, but he always just plays dumb. He'll say something like,
"Oh, I thought it was up for grabs. I didn't see a name on it."
But this guy's an absolute liar, and he knows it. The final straw was when he stole my container of homemade lasagna. Not just any lasagna, this was my mom's lasagna. The kind that takes like 6 hours to make and has more layers than a Christopher Nolan plot. I even put a note on it that says, "Do not touch, seriously." Well, the next day, the container's gone. It's washed and sitting in the sink, and Steve's breath smelled like oregano and betrayal. At that point, I'd had enough, so I decided to take the kind of revenge that would guarantee he would never mess with my food ever again. I brought in an old Tupperware I didn't care about, I double bagged it, and I made sure I was very well hydrated that morning, and I used the bottom drawer of his desk like it was my own personal porta potty, if you know what I mean. I then carefully closed it, cleaned the outside, and walked away like nothing happened. And you know what? He didn't notice right away. But by day 2, the smell was unreal. People thought something had died in the vents. Maintenance got called, and they were checking the ceiling tiles, they were crawling under the desks, and I acted concerned and even helped them look. Steve then started accusing everyone of leaving rotten food around until someone finally opened his drawer. And the scream he let out was something I will treasure forever. He ran to the bathroom gagging and took the rest of the day off. Now, was it immature? Absolutely. Do I regret it? No, not even a little bit. Ever since that day, my food has been 100% untouched. And when it comes to Steve's drawer, it still smells kind of weird. But you know what? Justice was served. And it was served warm and nasty. I'm not gonna lie, that's the grossest thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, seriously, you could have gone to like HR or like reported them to a manager, but instead you decided to do a number 2 in a jar and just leave it in his desk? Like, dude, that is brutal. That's a little bit too much even for me, and I love a good revenge plot. Like, seriously, that is so gross. So yeah, good for you, I guess, because he didn't eat any more of your food, but also, like, maybe don't do that ever again, because that could have gotten you in a lot of trouble, and I think you got off really lucky in this situation. An entitled male Karen tried to get free food from our pizza restaurant, but thankfully, my general manager saw right through his scheme, as she put him in his place in a way that honestly was fantastic to watch. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a pizza franchise, and I had the pleasure of being a spectator to the Karen game that took place today. Mr. Karen walks into our restaurant and speaks to our general manager. He immediately starts the game with a complaint about our cheese, as he wants to know what kind of cheese we use, where we get it from, and our thawing process that we have. He even dares to ask to see the label on one of the boxes. His reasoning is that 1 in every 8 pizzas he gets from our restaurant, the cheese isn't melted right. Mr. Karen then says, "I think she's the one that made the pizza last," and then points to the only black employee we have working there. Our general manager suggests that perhaps his issue with the way the cheese melts is that the toppings are normally put on before the cheese. So she takes his order and then he leaves to go shopping, or sit in his car maybe while the pizza's made. Whatever the case, our general manager insisted on being the only one to make his pizza through every single step, stretching the dough, applying the sauce, the cheese, the toppings. She even made sure that she was the only one to cut his pizza. When he came back to his pizza, she had him check the pizza right there in front of her to see if it was cooked the way that he liked it. Without even asking who made it, he immediately said, "Give that man a raise," as he then pointed to the only male worker we had on the clock at the time. But my general manager then told him, "Oh, but he didn't make it, I did." Well, Mr. Karen then quietly took his pizza and left after hearing that. And sure, he still had to pay for the pizza, but at the end of the day, he didn't get the free food that he was hoping for. Oh man, I can see exactly what kind of person this guy is. Literally from the people he was pointing out to the person he was trying to praise for doing the pizza right. Even though, guess what? It was probably fine the first time. And the people he singled out probably had nothing to do with the other pizzas. So yeah, I love managers who step up like this and do what needs to get done so that everybody can walk away and not have to deal with this garbage. Because this guy was completely out of line. My dad keeps taking credit for my work that I'm literally doing so that he can become a deacon, as he constantly comes to me for any kind of help with his homework, practically guilt-tripping me into doing it all for him. And at this point, I'm exhausted and I have other things I want to do with my life, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents have been piling their things on me ever since I was a child, and honestly, I'm at a point where I'm genuinely over it. I'm a 22-year-old female and I'm the first daughter and child, and I've been the parentified child for as long as I can remember. I used to take care of my dad when he was blackout drunk, or memorize my younger sister's schedule, or play family therapist. I think you get the idea. I've spent my whole youth working for their businesses. They have one nail shop and 2 restaurants, and I was the one doing their paperwork and taxes. Though I'm grateful that I was able to work and at least earn some money when I turned 18, I genuinely feel sad when I think about how much I missed out in life because I had all of these responsibilities. However, the main issue is that recently my dad wants to become a deacon and enrolled in school. The only problem is that he gives me his homework and somehow expects me to do all of it. I write all of his papers, I answer all of his discussions, I make his presentations, etc. I keep up with his schedule and have to spoon feed him information about basic class stuff. My parents both guilt trip me as well, saying that, oh, he doesn't know better, so you should help him out. And when he does do it, he ends up just halfway doing it, which causes me to have to redo it anyways. It is his second semester, and it has gotten to the point where he never checks his class website anymore and relies on me to check everything. I'm the one doing the readings and looking at emails. When he shows up to class or does group work, he proudly claims that my work was his own. I've brought up that I'm tired and that I have things of my own to do. I'm a straight A student in college, and I'm graduating soon. This last semester is important to me. Whenever I try to tell them to do their own work, all of a sudden, I'm the burden. I'm horrible, I'm a selfish daughter, but I've spent years trying to please them, and I genuinely have nothing left to give. I'm not trying to abandon them altogether like they've accused me of, but I just want them to stop relying on me. I'm truly exhausted, and I can't even say anything because the smallest thing turns into an argument for them. No matter what I do, it truly never can be enough, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is really sketchy because your dad can probably get in a lot of trouble, and he's doing himself no favors by not even learning the material he needs to know. From what I've been able to gather, becoming a deacon in this specific religion is akin to a lot of schoolwork that you would expect from college. It's not easy and there's a lot of things that go into it, so for him to be doing this dishonestly at that, in my opinion for starters, is incredibly ironic, but also it's just completely dishonest. Wouldn't you want to know exactly what you're getting into instead of just trying to get good grades based on what your daughter does for you? I don't know, it just seems so backwards. If I was going to school to become a deacon or anything similar to that, you better believe I'm going to be working hard to make sure I'm refined for this job instead of just passing my classes, getting in the job, and then not knowing at all what I'm doing. That's not going to look good at all. People are going to know immediately that, hey, this guy probably cheated through school. And also, can't you get expelled for that kind of stuff? If it's anything like college or some kind of upper education, the second they find out that, oh, he's not doing any of his work, if he gets caught, that's going to put a really bad reputation on his record. And yeah, other schools are going to look at that and other employment opportunities are going to be like, yeah, let's pass this guy up because he's a cheater and he used his daughter. And that might even negatively affect the original poster too. I don't know. That just seems really sketchy. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would literally stop doing this and be like, no, I'm not doing your schoolwork for you. This is way too much. I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm setting a boundary. Because I think at the bare minimum, this absolutely should be something that your dad takes care of and doesn't rely on you to actually do for him. Because at that point, you might as well be the one to sign up and become a deacon. So hopefully this all works out for you because honestly, this sounds incredibly obnoxious. Today I had one of the worst days of my life as I not only got scammed into helping someone move apartments, but I also nearly got robbed. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that sometimes I really hate the people of the state I'm born and raised in. I've got a truck, so I've been asked more than a few times since buying it to help friends and family move things. There's also a whole story involved in buying the truck about the previous owner's ex-wife, but I'm not going to go into details about that here. Anyway, last week, the cousin of a friend, someone I'd only been acquainted with twice, suddenly asked me for help with moving stuff out of his old apartment and into his new one. He was physically disabled and needed a cane to walk. The friend of a friend told me his cousin was disabled from a bad spine injury literally around a decade prior and had finally gotten into Section 8 apartments. They kind of played up the fact that he was disabled to get my help, so I reluctantly agreed. But then the guy was actually offended when I said I'd only help him if he paid me for my time and gas. And I seriously think he thought he could get help from me for free. But this was a guy that was a cousin to someone I'm not even close to, that was also friends with someone I'm barely close to. Some of my other friends called this guy a total Gary. I'm not sure if that's some new meme or an inside joke, and I don't really care either, but I will be using the name Gary just to make things easier. So I helped Gary to move after he agreed to pay me, but he acted completely butthurt when I refused to help unless he paid me in advance. I mean, I am not dumb. I could tell this guy would have tried to weasel out of paying me if I asked for the money afterwards. So he begrudgingly gave me $100 in cash for 2 trips of getting his stuff out of storage and into his new apartment. But he totally lied lied about the distance we would be driving. He said 20 miles, but when I put the address into the GPS, it was more like 35. I mean, I used most of what he paid me just to put gas in my truck because I had multiple trips of driving this guy's stuff 35 miles each way. And by the way, that was 140 miles total. And on top of that, I was doing most of the heavy lifting because Gary couldn't do any heavy lifting because of his bad back. The apartment I was helping get the stuff to was also on the 3rd floor and only accessible by stairs. So that was a lot of painful lifting. Once all the stuff was finally unloaded, Gary wanted me and the friend of a friend who introduced me to him to stick around and help him unpack and arrange everything. I tried to be nice about it, but he kept insisting and told me that I have to help him since I gouged him for cash. I then got mad and pointed out I helped him for several hours and I honestly barely know him. If anything, I undercharged him, especially since he lied about how far we were going. Plus, he clearly didn't even want to pay me to begin with. He would have had to pay several times more if he hired professional movers. Plus, he was constantly rude to me the entire time, and I heard him call me a redneck garbage collector when he thought I wasn't listening. Then I told him what my actual job and salary is, and that I'm never going to help him with anything ever again. Gary then got really red in the face and walked out while he called me names and said he never wanted to see me ever again. I then said back the feeling was pretty mutual, and now that he's so far away, I'm probably not going to be seeing him ever again anytime soon, which I am very thankful for. I've also told my other friends about this, and they all agree Gary was completely out of line, and the friend of a friend who put me up to all of that hasn't even messaged me to apologize. I was incredibly mad after leaving and decided I was gonna get some beer and just go home and get drunk. I stopped at a gas station, I got the beer, and then I noticed a taco truck down the street. So I parked at the taco truck, ordered the biggest overpriced burrito they had, and then sat in their waiting area. As I was sitting there, I noticed some random guy in a plaid shirt just casually stroll up to my truck, reach in through the window, and he literally snagged a 6-pack of my beer. And then after he did that, he just started to walk away casually with it. I then yelled at him to put the beer back right now. He stopped and looked at me like a deer in the headlights, then tried to act innocent and claimed that he was walking home with his beer. I remarked that I was the owner of the truck that he stole that beer out of, and I literally just watched him do it. I then said to put the beer back before I started to call the police. He then actually started complaining that it was just a 6-pack of beer and I could easily go buy another one, but I told him it didn't matter what it was. He was a thief and an entitled one at that, and to put the freaking beer back before I got mad. He then dropped the beer back on my seat from the window. He then gave me the middle finger all before leaving. Then someone nearby remarked that the thief was a local homeless addict who acts like that to everybody, and he had gotten his butt kicked a few times in similar incidents. Well, I went back and I immediately closed the windows and I locked the doors on my truck. I then got my burrito and I scarfed it down. And I really should have been more surprised to deal with 2 really entitled people in one day, but frankly, I'm just not anymore. Also, I will never be getting food from a place like that again because that burrito somehow wrecked my insides. And normally I can handle eating anything, but I was in and out of the bathroom all night, marking this day literally one of the worst things I've ever had to deal with in quite a while. Oh man, you had a really bad day. Like, there's no other way to put that, and I say that with as much sympathy as I can, but it really seemed like the universe on this day was like, okay, it's your turn. You get the blunt end of the stick and there's nothing you can do about that. And I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. Like, seriously, that really sucks. And I know what you mean by having to move someone that you don't know, because I've had to do that so many times. And you hit the nail on the head. It seems like when you have a truck, everyone's like, oh yeah, you're my best friend suddenly. And even this would be so far of a stretch, it's not even funny. Like, seriously, the only people I'm ever moving with anything I have are people that I know personally, not random strangers that I know from a friend of a friend. That's stupid and that's definitely not happening. So yeah, I think you win the award for having the worst day possible because this sounded like an absolute nightmare. An entitled Karen and her demon spawn freak out on me after her kid breaks one of our iPads that we use for our business at a bowling alley. Things got so bad that she literally got herself and her kid banned from the bowling tournament that was going on at the moment, resulting in one of the greatest forms of karma I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. So I work at a bowling alley and today we had a very large tournament, roughly 6 people on all 40 lanes. At the start of the day, it was nice and quiet until about 2 to 3 hours in. This kid, who was maybe 10 to 12 years old, that was sat directly in front of the front counter, had their iPad out and the iPad ran out of battery. Well, the kid lost it at this point, practically screaming at his mother to charge it or to play on her phone. But you know what? She clearly didn't care. She basically told him to sit down and shut up. Now, the kid only did about half of that as he started walking around the counter. He then noticed the iPad that we have behind the counter, which is something we use to help keep track of reservations and parties going on in the bowling alley. Well, when he saw our iPad, his face lit up like it was Christmas morning. Now, as I always do, when a kid runs behind the counter, I stop them and I say, "Whoa, little buddy, you can't be back here." The kid then looked at me, pointed at the iPad, and said, "But I want it." But I responded by saying, "Sorry, little dude, but that's our important iPad. I can't let you have it." The kid then said to me, "Oh, okay," and then walked away. Now me, thinking that was the end of it, I went back to doing my usual stuff for my job, especially when it comes to having like a tournament going on in our facility. Fast forward to maybe about 5 minutes later, and I see out of the corner of my eye, the kid sneaking around the side of the counter and reaching out to the iPad. Once again, I told him he can't have it this time, with a bit more of a strict tone to it to tell him that I'm serious. With me still looking at him, he reached out more and more until he grabbed it and ran away. Luckily though, he didn't get far. He ended up tripping over one of the many ball bags strewn across the floor behind the bowlers. However, and unfortunately, he landed on the tiled off eating area, smashing the tablet on the ground. Naturally, the kid started bawling and I rushed over to grab the iPad off the ground, only for some of the glass to fall out. Well, the mother was definitely not pleased about any of this. She looked beet red as she hurried over and shouted, "How could you hurt my little pumpkin?" I then explained the situation to her and how her child tripped and smashed the iPad, and she gave me the stereotypical response where she said to me, "My child is an angel and he could do no wrong." She then demanded that we pay her for a new iPad for her son. I then told her that's not how this works, and she started causing a scene. In fact, she was so loud that the tournament head came over noticing the commotion and asked what was going on, and obviously we both gave our sides of the story. He then said that since the damage happened during his tournament, he would reimburse us for the damaged iPad, but the mother, the son, and her bowler were all kicked out and the bowler was disqualified. And honestly, I feel bad for the bowler. I mean, he was doing pretty good in the tournament, but thanks to a crappy parent, it was all null and void. I talked with the official later on, and he said that she's been a problem at other places before for similar issues, and as such, she's always being too rowdy and not watching her kid. And apparently, she has been warned at their last tournament that if it happened again, her son would be disqualified from the tournament. And sure, I do feel bad about it, but honestly, oh well, because this entitled Karen and her demon spawn absolutely had it coming. Imagine being so entitled that you literally try to flip the script for something your stupid, idiotic 12-year-old kid actually did on their own. Like seriously, think about it for a second. This kid stole property that wasn't his, ran off with it, and then broke it on the ground, and then tried to cry wolf as if he got hurt somehow. And then the mom swoops in and says, "Oh, you're paying for this iPad." It's like, hey genius, not only is it not your iPad, but if anyone should have to pay for it, it should be her. And I totally get it. The tournament organizers trying to be nice and trying to like bail you out or something like that. But seriously, that lady absolutely should have paid for that iPad. Those things are not cheap. And the fact that she just broke one, assuming it was hers, and then tried to be like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna pay me back for this." Like, I'm sure she was probably waiting for something like this to happen, because this just seems so immediate in my opinion. So good for you for being attentive and definitely putting your foot down, because this Karen and her stupid kid were completely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I've been dealing with these annoying spam callers for so long that I finally snapped and decided to return the favor, as I called them back hundreds of times, forcing them to get it through their heads that I don't want to talk to them. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently scam called my scam callers and it got them to finally stop. They were calling 10 to 15 times a day, each time spoofing a US-based location, and had the exact same voicemail, which has forced me to need to delete my entire voicemail inbox literally 3 times weekly for at least a year. And trust me, this is extremely frustrating. So many calls during work meetings, important moments with my friends, etc. Every single time, it's the same voice message. They would say something like, "This is Jennifer from the senior underwriting team calling about your loan." And after doing some research, I found a post about this specific scam, and in one comment, a guy claimed to have scam called them back, and it finally got them to stop. So I thought to myself, why not? Let's see if it works. I called, I put myself on mute, and I hung up after about 5 to 10 seconds of them talking. And I did this exactly 266 times in 35 minutes, each time to the same number, and I cycled through 20 to 30 employees with accents from Australia to India to Mid-Atlantic, as well as at least 3 different company names they claim to be from, and many scripts. Sometimes they'd start one script, then mess up and start another one. Other times they'd just say hello, but the best one is when they would change mid-script what company they were claiming to be from. After about 150 calls, I started getting intermittently hung up on immediately after they answered the call, and I knew I was getting to them. Finally, at call 260, I reached the final boss. In a deep mob boss style voice, this guy said, and I kid you not, "Sir, you gotta stop with these spam calls. I mean, seriously, you gotta have something better to do with your time, right?" Now, this all happened Thursday, and you know what? I'm still riding the high to this day. day. Wow, it is so ironic that the people who were scam calling you tried to literally be like, you're spamming our phone lines, you need to stop it. And it's like, okay, what about what you guys have been doing to me for so long? And the fact that they're leaving voicemails like that, in my opinion, is the worst part about it. They're flooding your inbox with useless crap, and they're seriously just bothering you for no reason. So good for you for getting some much needed revenge, because in my opinion, these people absolutely deserve it. Am I the jerk for kicking a homeless woman out of the hotel that I work at? As I really feel bad about doing this, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a 5-star hotel, and more than a month ago, a woman came to the lobby at around 10 o'clock p.m. and asked if she could stay for a while inside. She was presentable and polite, so we agreed. At around 4 o'clock in the morning, she finally left, but the day afterwards, she came back with the same request, and again, we allowed her to stay and sleep for a while. That is, until she left at around 5 o'clock in the morning. This kept on repeating for the next days, and she started coming earlier, asking for food and drinks from the bar, and staying until later and asking for breakfast in the morning. We eventually got a warning from our supervisor saying that this cannot keep on happening, and the next day when she came again, which by the way, this has been going on for 3 weeks, we had to kick her out at around 2 o'clock in the morning. However, she just kept coming every single day. She has now been coming to the hotel every night for 5 weeks straight, where she has asked more than once if she could shower in one of the rooms, store her heavy bags which she carries every night, and even paid for a room which was more than $200 a night just for one of the nights. We have offered to help her several times, giving her recommendations for homeless shelters and the like, but she keeps on denying it. The reception team has even offered to get her a room at a cheap hotel, to which she says no, and she claims to have no friends or family that can help her out. The part I cannot understand is that she is always clean with clean clothing, she smells nice, and she's always polite. She often uses her MacBook and iPhone at the reception and has never disturbed anyone. I know from a logical point of view we can give her shelter and leftover food, but it's part of the hotel policy that no one can sleep in the lobby, not even any of the guests at the hotel. In the last few times we had to kick her out, she complains that no woman should be left alone in the streets at night, and it really makes me feel like a jerk to ask her to leave. So am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, no, you're definitely not the jerk. This is not your problem because literally you're just doing your job. This is not a homeless shelter. This is a place of business. This is a 5-star hotel that has standards. And so it makes perfect sense that your manager would be like, no, she can't sleep in the lobby. That's not good for business and I don't want that. So no, you're not the jerk in the slightest. I would not feel bad about this at all because there is options available for her that she can go to if she really is homeless. And for her to guilt trip you like that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My entitled stepmother invited her family to my graduation parties, quite literally all without asking me first, ruining the entire event and forcing me to want to cancel altogether. And at this point, I don't know if I'm in the wrong because now I'm incredibly stressed out. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female and I'm graduating college in May, and I'm 5 months pregnant with my first child, which for the record, I'm having with my 26-year-old male partner. My mom passed away when I was young, so I was raised by my dad. We've always had a solid relationship, but things have often been strained by his wife, who we will call Mary, who got married to my dad when I was 13 years old. Now, Mary is okay, but we've had tension over the years due to her doing some shady things when I was younger and our completely opposite political and religious beliefs. Still, ever since becoming pregnant, I've made an effort to be warmer towards her. I truly believe she cares about my child, and as someone who grew up lacking that kind of support, I want my son to be surrounded by as much love as possible. Mary offered to plan my baby shower, and I was grateful. Between being pregnant, my final semester of my degree, and managing my high blood pressure, I just didn't have the energy to plan it myself. She's never had children, and this may be my only one, so I figured it's a kind gesture. But things started getting uncomfortable when she began pulling more and more of her own family into the planning. Then she suggested throwing 2 baby showers, one for my people, meaning my friends and my partner's family, and one for her people, which would be extended and deeply conservative and frankly difficult family members. Now that really rubbed me the wrong way, especially since my graduation party had already been canceled due to money concerns. But still, I just let that go, partly to avoid conflict, and mostly because free baby stuff is free baby stuff. So I shifted focus to a similar graduation party, a small dinner with a few close friends and family, no more than 12 people, including my partner's family who still haven't met my dad. But you know what? Mary took that over too, inviting 8 of her family members without asking, and that really felt like a slap in the face. Now for reference, her family has never embraced me. I have always felt judged, ignored, or out of place around them. Over the past 10 years, they've never once asked how school was going or shown any support. And now I'm expected to smile through dinner with people who have treated me like a stranger while I'm pregnant, as well as overwhelmed and just trying to celebrate a huge milestone. It devastated me and I cried for days. And Mary doesn't take feedback well. She once canceled my Sweet 16 over an argument we had 4 months prior. I messaged her to say that dinner no longer felt like it was for me and that her guest list made it stressful, and let my people know that we'll do some separate gathering later. And to be honest, I'm still upset. It's not about just being mean. Her family can be unsafe. Her brother has mental health issues, has inappropriately touched my dog in front of everybody, including Mary, and you know what? She just laughed about it. I have 2 baby nieces and a child on the way. I will not risk having them around someone like that. If that causes drama, then honestly, so be it. So am I the jerk for being furious and canceling dinner? I know my pregnancy hormones are strong, but I feel like my boundaries are being trampled during what should be a joyful time in my life. What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Mary sounds obnoxious and she sounds very controlling. And I think you trying to have like a baby shower with her, in my opinion, was like a last-ditch effort. It seems like this is you extending an olive branch for what has been a tumultuous upbringing. And once again, she has trampled all over that, and that is really not fair. It sucks that you have to deal with that, and I just don't blame you for being upset. So no, you're not the jerk. This really is supposed to be about you, and it's quite obvious that your stepmom is trying to make it about her. Am I the jerk for installing a lock on my bathroom door after my roommate started using it, despite the fact that we all agree that that bathroom is mine? Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I live with a 25 and 27-year-old male in a shared house that we rent. When we all first moved in here about 6 months ago, we all signed agreements on certain things. One of those things being that I will solely cover the cost of the water bill, but the spare bathroom in the house is mine. And this was all completely fine until about 2 weeks ago. My 27-year-old roommate, who I will call John for the sake of the story, recently started using my shower randomly out of the blue. I figured maybe they ran into each other and he needed a shower really quick for work, and I thought no biggie and that it wasn't that big of a deal. But this turned into John using my bathroom every single day, showering, going to the bathroom, shaving, and leaving hair everywhere, and honestly, I've had enough. So I cleaned the entire bathroom and I installed a lock on it with a key that only I have. After I did this, John sent a message to our group chat saying, and I quote, "Why is the bathroom locked? What is happening?" Now, in the days leading up to this, I spoke to my other roommate and he agreed with me that I should lock it and be done with it, and has zero issues with that one being mine per our agreement. When John first sent that message, I was just clocking into work, so I sent a quick, "Well, because I pay extra for that bathroom to be solely mine." And after that, I left my phone in my locker, and when I got on my break, I came back to a bunch of messages in our group chat with some of the highlights blowing my mind. He said stuff like, "No you do not. If I can't use the bathroom in our house, I might as well just move out." And he was essentially just throwing a fit about the entire thing. So seriously, am I the jerk for locking the door down? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, maybe you could have talked to John ahead of time and been like, "Hey, can you not use that bathroom?" And then remind him of the agreement that you guys had when you first moved in, because that might have been like a good solution to this problem. But from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like John would have like responded to that at all. And if anything, it probably would have made things just a little bit worse. So I understand why you went from like cleaning it up to then locking it down and being like, "No, you're not going to use it." And if this guy really is like, "Oh, I'm not going to live here anymore if I can't use that bathroom," at that point I would be like, "Oh, okay, off you go then. Like, there's the door if you really want to leave." Because everybody agreed to this stipulation. This is your bathroom while you guys are living here, and if he doesn't like it, then yeah, he probably should leave. So no, you're not the jerk, because in my opinion, what you're enforcing with them is completely reasonable. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that I would leave my son's birthday party if she invited my husband's ex? Because this is seriously obnoxious, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I really need an outside opinion because I seriously feel like I'm going crazy. My husband and I have been together for almost 10 years. He has a daughter from a previous relationship, and her mom left when she was little. She wanted to live life and signed over full custody. My stepdaughter and I have always had a great bond. She used to call me mama, would bake with me, play with my hair, help with everything around the house. And when my son was born, she was the most loving big sister. But for the past 6 to 8 months, things have changed. She started spending more time with her mom again, and slowly I became invisible. She stopped calling me mama, she got colder, more distant, and even corrected me in front of others. One day she said to me, "My real mom says only real moms get to decide things about me," and that really crushed me. Now, I didn't argue and I just said nothing. I figured she was growing up and processing a lot. Around the same time, my mother-in-law, who is married to my husband's brother, reconnected with his ex, my stepdaughter's mom. They were childhood friends, and suddenly the ex was showing up at family gatherings, as well as Sunday lunches and birthdays. The same woman the entire family used to trash for walking out is now welcome like nothing happened. And at first I stayed quiet, even though it really hurt. But then came my son's birthday. My sister-in-law was helping me plan the party, and during the conversation in my mother-in-law's kitchen, she casually said, "Oh, and your ex is bringing a little birthday gift for the birthday boy." And when she said this, I was stunned. I asked if she had invited her, and she said yes, because she's the mother of his sister and part of the family. I then calmly told her, if she shows up, I will leave with my son. I am not comfortable with that. She then called me insecure and said that I was being childish and that she had been friends with my ex long before I entered the picture, that I'm just jealous because some woman can't handle their man's past. I walked away and I told my husband, and he understood how I felt, but he hates family drama and said he didn't want to take sides. Now, my sister-in-law is saying I'm ruining the party, I'm being selfish, and I'm trying to erase the mother of my stepdaughter. But this woman left her daughter behind. I stepped in when she was gone. I stayed up through every fever, every nightmare, every single birthday, and now she's re-entering like a hero while I'm pushed aside. What really broke me was when my stepdaughter said, my mom promised that she'd sing me happy birthday with me and my brother. She deserves to be there too. I feel like no matter what I do, I will always be a placeholder. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for saying I'd leave my own son's birthday party if my husband's ex came along? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is so stupid it's not even funny, because I can't believe your spouse is not taking your side. This is not a matter of family drama. This is a huge violation of privacy and a massive boundary that everybody's just conveniently ignoring. And that's not fair for you. You literally do not deserve that, and the fact that no one's taking this seriously says volumes about this family. So it's like, you mean to tell me they would willingly let this person back into all of their lives, even though this person has made everybody's lives miserable? And I understand people trying to forgive others and move on with their lives, but it's especially annoying when you're like, okay, but I haven't found any solace or any kind of like, I don't know, resolution about any of this. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting her there, and for saying that you'll leave with your son all because she might be there in the first place, because that really sounds super toxic, and I don't blame you for being upset. Am I the jerk if I remove a bridesmaid from my wedding party when I'm their maid of honor? Because right now they've made me very uncomfortable, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I gathered my future bridesmaids the other day for wedding dress shopping. One of my bridesmaids, who we will call Cherry, was the second to arrive, and after giving her a formal "will you be my bridesmaid" gift, she made the comment of saying, well, we all know that I should be the maid of honor. This threw me off a bit because even prior to getting engaged, I've always been firm and clear with my friends that my BFF will be my maid of honor. What's more is that she said this in front of another bridesmaid bestie of mine, who we will call Skylar. I stated that it's rude to say that, since my position on who would be my maid of honor has been firm for years longer than my friendship with Cherry. Cherry then quit back that since I'm her maid of honor, it's only fair that she be mine, and then semi-sulk throughout the entire dress try-ons. Fast forward to the lunch, and it's now 3 of my bridesmaids and some family, and she asks loudly how much I'll be spending on my wedding. I state that it's a private matter between my fiance and I, and then she turns the conversation to her own wedding, which is, by the way, a year after mine, and how much money she's saved by buying used, how she's planning on spending $10,000, and that I should come to her for planning and advice. Now, I thank her and I reinforce again that my fiance and I will be planning our wedding based on our budget, as well as the venue and the vendor availabilities for our wedding. She then turns the conversations to bridesmaid outfits and colors, and as I'm doing a specific color scheme, I give her a color range to choose from. The dress choice is their own, as I want my bridesmaids to look and feel their best. Well, in front of everyone, she demanded that she have first choice of dress color and that she wanted someone else's palette range. At this point, I don't know what else to say, and she goes on to say that I'm her maid of honor and that she wouldn't do this to me, which, by the way, she has given me zero choice on anything. When I got home later that day with Skylar, she made a comment that she felt pretty uncomfortable with Cherry, and I also received a call from my maid of honor with some concerns over her interactions with Cherry and how it felt like Cherry wants to be the center of attention for literally everything wedding related on my end. And I honestly can't say that I don't disagree with their feelings and perspectives. In reality, and this makes me feel like a jerk, I don't want to have Cherry in my bridal party, as I have other close friends that I want to be there with me. However, I feel obligated, as she made me her maid of honor and has been vocal about being in my wedding party for a few years of my relationship. I'm preparing to have a heartfelt conversation with her about this and set the expectation that if she continues with this path of statements and attitude, then I will have to remove her from the wedding party. So am I the jerk if I do this? I live a very much go with the flow kind of lifestyle, and I'm approaching the wedding planning with my fiance in the same way, and it's making me anxious having these kinds of conversations and interactions and energy involved in the process. So at this point, I'm so confused because I don't know what to do. Okay, no, I do not think you're the jerk at all. Cherry sounds obnoxious, and it seems like this is all premeditated because she clearly wants to be the maid of honor and no one else should in her opinion. And that is stupid. That's really dumb, and I just don't think you should have to deal with that. I do think that if you kick her out as a bridesmaid, you will also probably have to step down as maid of honor, because I could never imagine that working, and honestly, from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like working with Cherry would be a pleasant experience in the slightest. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're going to love what they're making over there. It's a great channel, and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.